Chapter 1284. However, all of this was based on Jiang Tian's experience in his previous life. He couldn't be 100% sure. Did he take the 10,000 orifices demonic infant away from Earth, or did he leave it there? If she's on Earth, she must be a world-destroying danger. We must find her and eliminate her as soon as possible. The 10,000 orifices demonic infant was too terrifying. She didn't need to cultivate. She had the power of a void return or even a Tao reunion cultivator. She was far more powerful than a soul formation cultivator and could destroy the world. However, if the white-robed emissary used his mortal body to seal this infant, it would be extremely difficult to find her. Jiang Tian frowned helplessly. Even if he reached the nascent soul stage, it would be difficult for his divine soul to cover all the humans on Earth. After all, there were 6 billion people. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. How could it be that easy? Besides, the white-robed emissary might have taken her to the ruins of immortality or the Southern Gate twin stars. She's already at the soul formation stage. With the help of some aircraft, it's possible for her to cross the void in a few years. Jiang Tian thought for a long time and finally gave up the idea of looking for the 10,000 orifices demonic infant. Firstly, it was unrealistic. There were too few clues. Secondly, it was very likely that she was no longer on Earth. There were two sides to this. He had to be calm. If he worried too much, he would be panicking. The most important thing now was the invasion of the ruins of immortality. If he reached the nascent soul stage in a few years, he could still find a way to kill the demonic infant even if she was still alive. I'd better go underground and see if there are any other clues. At the same time, I have to accurately determine the location of star destruction. Jiang Tian made up his mind and threw a Dharma artifact into the sky. The Dharma artifact quickly rushed out of the Tunguska demon lake and bloomed. Star destruction, I'm coming. Soon after, Jiang Tian grabbed Ayu and entered the flat mountain earth drilling all. That all-immortal artifact circled and flew above the Tao platform. Then it pointed downwards and spun rapidly. Its target was star destruction deep underground. What's that? When Jiang Tian threw out his Dharma artifact, everyone saw a huge disk array rise up into the air like a flying saucer. It gave off a bright light that covered a radius of dozens of miles. Everyone was shocked and their hearts were filled with fear. If one were to observe it closely, they would discover that the magical equipment was extremely delicate. Many of the components were extremely complicated and there were a lot of scales on them. They could release rays of light of various wavelengths and release and receive enormous mental waves. The magical artifact released by Jiang Tian was similar to a coordinate anchor. On the one hand, it was connected to the coordinates of the landmarks in the satellite GPS. On the other hand, it was connected to Jiang Tian's consciousness, which allowed it to accurately determine the trajectory of Jiang Tian's movement underground. It was also connected to the secondary anchor, which allowed it to sense the specific location. Earth's technology and cultivation civilization combined to determine the final location of the planet's destruction. Rumble. The flat mountain drilling earth drill spun at lightning speed. It was like a peerless heavenly sword that pierced through tens of thousands of feet of waves. It tore apart the magma and advanced courageously. Ordinary people were bound by the mundane lives of daily necessities. How many of them could raise their eyes to look at the vast universe and the deep starry sky? But compared to the deep universe, although the land under their feet was closer, humans knew even less about it. There were a lot of unknowns and it was very mysterious. At the same time, the vast underground energy was surging. The scorching magma was like an ocean. The earthly malevolent chi was surging, sweeping and tearing. Each of them was strong enough to tear apart a core formation stage cultivator. Even a normal nascent soul stage cultivator would be torn apart if they entered it with their body. There was also an unknown material that was translucent and was spinning like a giant millstone. Its enormous pressure was enough to turn diamonds into liquid. But Jiang Tian had only observed it with his consciousness. It wasn't visible to the naked eye. Even though Ayu's divine sense was strong enough, he could only sense chaos and chaos. He could not see anything else. In the thick and scorching magma, in the complicated underground materials, the Pingshan earth drilling drill dived rapidly like a nuclear submarine. When Jiang Tian and the others were thousands of kilometers deep, suddenly, whoosh! A giant blade that was a few hundred meters long slashed towards the flat mountain drilling earth drill without fear of the magma. I told you that there are grand cultivators' bodies here, but you didn't believe me. Do you believe me now? We're doomed. We're dead. Yu yelled in the cabin and tears were running down his cheeks. A dignified young demon king had defeated hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, forcing the Russian emperor into exile. But at the moment he was trembling like a 3-year-old child and crying. Because the legends about the underground were too terrifying. But from his point of view it was worth understanding. Zhang Tian was only a fake core cultivator and a nascent soul cultivator, while he was only a peak stage golden core cultivator. He might be able to stay safe with the help of the Dharma artifact. But once the Dharma artifact was destroyed, it would sink into the magma and turn into powder under the high temperature and pressure. His ancestor, a nascent soul overlord, had tried to enter the underground to cultivate near planet destruction, but he had been burned to ashes. Zhang Tian's spiritual sense had long anticipated this. He agilely controlled the mountain-crushing earth drilling awl, drawing a beautiful arc and brushing past the blade. Zhang Tian was certain that his slash could definitely slice through numinous treasures and destroy thousands of feet tall mountains. Zhang Tian immediately sensed that there was a tall existence standing in the magma, like a demon or a god. More than half of the armor on his body had been corroded by the lava. Many parts of his body had also rotted and turned into white bones. His eyes shot out thousands of meters of divine light that pierced through the lava and blasted away the earth fiend. It was extremely terrifying. He held the saber with both claws and his fingernails were as sharp as bone hooks. He had the aura of a man who could hold back 10,000 men. Compared to its mountain-like body, Zhang Tian's mountain-crushing drill was as small as a speck of dust. You still dare to come? You're courting death. This humanoid giant's black hair danced in the wind, and he was domineering. Flames shone on his armor and his saber aura was terrifying. His spirit embryo had already turned into a divine treasure, and it contained a primordial spirit. It was a god in the human realm. Although the primordial spirit was tattered and on the verge of death, it still proved that he was a soul formation realm strong practitioner. A god in the devil race? Zhang Tian scanned with his spiritual sense and he frowned. A trace of seriousness flashed past his face. The divine realm was just a realm. After soul formation one could control the laws of heaven and earth and form their own domain. They were called gods in the human realm. All skills came from the same source and all paths led to the same destination. Regardless of whether it was the devil race, the demon race or the beast race, as long as they reached this realm they could be called gods. This saber-wielding general had a very small head, and his entire body was covered in black scales. As the scales parted, long green hair emerged from them, and they were suffused with strands of black devil chi. They were like silk ribbons like a waterfall and drifted indeterminately. His long green hair and devil chi were not afraid of high temperatures, and even the magma was blasted away. It was obvious that he was not weak. After a closer look, the unknown creature in front of him had indeed reached the soul formation realm. Its spirit embryo had turned into a divine treasure and its divine body was hidden inside. Even if it's a god, it shouldn't be able to withstand it, right? But this also shocked Zhang Tian. According to Yu, this underground creature had existed for countless years. Even a soul formation grand cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand such a cruel environment for thousands of years. He would have been crushed into ashes. Kill, kill, kill. Crush, crush them all. Behind him were some grotesque entities that were half human and half demon. They were tall and intimidating and their cultivation bases were even lower than Meng Hao's, only in the nascent soul stage. They opened their mouths and roared, revealing sinister fangs. However, they still didn't die. They all had long green hair or red hair. Demonic energy surged and swirled around them. Torrential waves rose from the magma, engulfing the surroundings and rampaging about. However, their eyes were either dull and blank as if they didn't have much intelligence, or they were filled with dense killing intent, vicious, wild, and overbearing to the extreme as if they wanted to tear the world apart. There were even many broken ancient ships floating behind them. Calling them ancient ships was just an image. In fact, Zhang Tian could tell that they were some kind of drilling Dharma artifacts, but they were even cruder. They're not good people anyway. Next to him, young fiend King Athwa was trembling and his scalp was about to explode. He urged, "We can either retreat or kill them. The one who strikes first gains the upper hand, the one who strikes later suffers. Hurry up." "Who are you?" "They're fiends. Brothers, kill them for me." The general's voice was sharp and penetrative. He used his divine treasures to activate his voice, which could be transmitted dozens of miles away. He waved his hand. Immediately, 2 nascent soul generals walked out and flashed a few miles. They had already adapted to living and moving in the magma. Their murderous aura spread deep underground and their swords created waves of magma that were 1,000 feet tall, moving towards Zhou Xian. They were very powerful and seemed to have been contaminated by the fiends. They weren't afraid of the earth fiend fire and magma. Instead, they could use the magma to enhance their power. One slash was enough to level a mountain 1,000 feet high. In a blink, Zhou Xian was in a perilous situation. Chapter 1285. You're courting death. Zhou Xian's eyes were cold as he snorted. The cauldron of myriad origin that was floating behind the earth drilling drill was activated. A ribbon-shaped initial aura swept out like a heavenly blade. Whoosh! There was a sharp sound. The 2 nascent soul generals were crushed and turned into ashes. Even their nascent souls were turned into powder and mixed with the lava. Who are you? Demon, die for me. The leading humanoid creature was shocked and shouted angrily. He waved his giant blade and rushed towards Zhou Xian. He slashed with his long blade and the lava was split into 2. The lava within 100 miles moved. They were fighting thousands of miles deep underground and their power was slowly released. If they were fighting on the surface, it would cause an unprecedented volcanic eruption. If they were fighting on the surface, this slash would be enough to destroy mountains and rivers, split the earth, flatten everything within 100 miles and destroy all life. So powerful. Zhou Xian's face changed slightly and his pupils contracted. The Ashoka young demon king was scared out of his wits and cried. Although Zhou Xian's body was strong, he only had the strength of 6 fake cores after all. It was already his limit to kill a nascent soul cultivator. It was impossible for him to deal with a soul formation overlord. There was no other way. This was the gap between their strength, an insurmountable gap. He wasn't the only one like this. Even the divine fetus deities nurtured by the immortal sacred grounds would send experts to protect them before they reached the pinnacle of the omnipotent realm, for fear that they would be killed. The reason was simple. It was like a seedling that had the potential to grow into a towering tree, but it was still easy to be destroyed when it was young. The good thing was, Zhou Xian was lucky and had a lot of Dharma treasures. The cauldron of myriad origin flew towards the leading creature. Wherever the giant cauldron passed, the lava was swept away and everything was destroyed, forming an empty area of 10 miles deep underground. Roar! The humanoid creature roared, killing intent surging in its eyes. Its green fur fluttered in the wind as demonic chi rolled out. The powerful demonic chi swept out in all directions, pushing the magma apart and forming a 1,000-meter-wide vacuum ball. It soared into the sky and swept across the 9 heavens and 10 earths, like the birth of a demonic star. I can even kill the Fiend King's solar eclipse. When this saber slashed out, the saber light was dazzling. Endless coldness burst out as if it could shatter the ancient times. The past, present, and future would all collapse under this saber. The aura that could slay demons and gods was mighty. However, after this slash, the humanoid creature abruptly froze on the spot. The light in its eyes flickered as if it was about to dim. The surging killing intent, battle intent, and demonic aura around it were almost extinguished in an instant. He looked up at the stone cauldron with an extremely sorrowful expression. His voice was low, as if his hope had been shattered and his heart had been shattered. Cauldron of myriad origin. His Majesty's Emperor's divine cauldron. Has Emperor Xing been killed by the Annihilators and the Fiends? He had even forgotten about the myriad origin cauldron that was pressing down on him like a mountain. He no longer feared death and was in a daze. There was only endless sadness and desperation. Who are you? Zhou Xian thought. The cauldron of myriad origin flew to the top of the flat mountain drill and let down strands of primordial energy to protect the surroundings. I'm Ying Ziyu, the general of Emperor Zhong Li's excavation army. I've been ordered by Emperor Sheng and Emperor Yu to dig 100,000 feet underground to control or destroy planet extermination. The humanoid creature lowered its head and its voice trembled. Tears came out of its eyes, but they were evaporated by the heat as soon as they came out. It seemed that it had no tears. 3,000 nascent soul cultivators and 400 soul formation grand cultivators have all died. There are only 100 left. Unfortunately, they've been contaminated by fiend qi and cursed, becoming half human, half fiend. We've failed and we've lost our lives. We don't dare to go back. His tears and blood had boiled underground for tens of thousands of years and there wasn't much left. His divine treasures and meridians were filled with fiend qi, but they were forcefully turned into energy by their powerful willpower to support their bodies. You're the remnants of Emperor Xing? Jiang Tian was shocked and couldn't believe it. Is Emperor Xing dead? Where's Emperor Yu? Did you kill him? Did the humans on Earth lose in the end? Are our descendants all dead? We should have gone out and killed the last ones. Emperor Xing won't punish us. Nobody will. Many overlords of the mythological era who had been contaminated by fiend qi cried in despair, like children who had lost their parents. However, they didn't shed any tears. The blood and tears of the heroes had already dried up. Their bodies were all skin and bones like mummies. Some even turned into skeletons and turned into lava. Their vocal cords had already degenerated and disappeared. Only their nascent souls, primordial spirits and divine treasures were still burning. Although we've been defeated, we'll fight until the last moment for the living beings on Earth. Ingziu wiped the tears that didn't flow out of his eyes and roared, "All soldiers of the digging vanguard, listen up. Don't let them take Planet Destroyer away. Spirit Qi belongs to the living beings on Earth. Fight. We can only fight. Behind us is the hope of the revival of Earth's Spirit Qi. It belongs to Earth and the indigenous gods. We can't let them take it away." More than 100 ancient overlords roared. Rumble. He went all out, his armor flashing and lava flowing out of his 7 orifices. His white bones cut through the lava and his murderous aura surged in all directions. At that moment they seemed to have returned to the mythological era, to the days when they fought against the Annihilators and the Fiend race. They were fearless and didn't care about their own safety. According to the cruel rules of the universe, the greatest respect for a civilization is to completely destroy it. Jiang Tian's deep eyes flashed and he was slightly moved. They should have been cautious. The Annihilators and any other races in the universe should have been wary of humans on Earth and come to destroy the living beings on Earth. Whether it was the mythological era tens of thousands of years ago or the unknown overlords a few thousand years later, turning the entire galaxy into a dead zone. It was a wise decision, because the indigenous people on Earth had an extremely strong ability to adapt. They could risk their lives to protect their country, endure endless torture and even humiliation to pass on their civilization, and do their best for a chance of survival. During the mythological era, when Emperor Xing opened the deity ground and the deity ground to wander the universe, when the gods fought against the invaders from other planets, they died like rain. The guards of the southern gate of heaven who had died tens of thousands of years ago, and Ingziu and the vanguard army, who were digging 1,000 miles underground and were tainted by demonic energy to destroy Planet Destroyer. The living beings on Earth, from the saints and emperors to the soldiers and individual cultivators, all had unyielding blood and tenacious consciousness. They were willing to fight to the end for the survival of the human civilization. Most of the vanguard army were only nascent soul cultivators, and some of them only had crude dharma artifacts for drilling. They had dared to go deep underground. They were simply courting death. They advanced wave after wave, facing death with equanimity. In the end they failed. The remaining 100 or so overlords were tainted by demonic energy and cursed, turning into half-human, half-monster monsters. But they still stayed deep underground. Maybe they were waiting for their successors to open a path for them. Maybe they were guarding Planet Destroyer and couldn't take it away or destroy it, but at least they couldn't let the enemy take it away. In short, they were contributing their last bit of strength and wouldn't stop until they died. Such a civilization and race was like a spring that couldn't be pressed. The harder it was pressed, the more powerful it would be. Under the crisis of the end of the world, a huge rebound force, or even a great explosion of the civilization's strength, would be formed and the latecomers would catch up. How could such a civilization not make people scared and vigilant? If such a civilization didn't go extinct, even if there were only a few sparks left, the sparks would ignite the grass and the grass would ignite the trees. In the end, it would become a prairie fire, illuminating the cruel and bloody dark forest of the universe. Because they were willing to sacrifice themselves for their loved ones, for their descendants, for their homeland and civilization. They would completely burn their lives even if it was the weakest flame. However, the current situation didn't allow Zhang Tian to feel too much. Zhang Tian hurriedly used his divine sense to send a message. He said respectfully, "Senior, I am Jiang Taichu, the leader of the Myth Alliance. I am not a demon nor an annihilator. I am a human from Earth. I'm the successor of Emperor Sheng's last wish. I'm here to explore Planet Destroyer and revive the spirit Qi." Wait. Ingziyu raised his hand. "Commander, we can't let him live. Strange. Too strange. If he's not an annihilator, how can he come here? It's better to kill him." Most of the soldiers stopped in their tracks and looked at one another in dismay. Their divine treasures and spirit embryos rumbled, and most of them were still in favor of eliminating Zhang Tian. "Kid, are you lying?" Ingziyu asked calmly. "Why do you have Emperor Sheng's Dharma treasure? Why do you have a devil with you? I recognize him. He has a very pure earth devil bloodline. He came here with the man in white before and took the devil fetus away." "Ah, Senior, listen to me slowly. Emperor Yu is indeed dead, but I don't know if Emperor Sheng is dead yet. But the war is indeed over. I think it's been 100,000 years since I started wandering in the deity ground," Zhang Tian said with a heavy voice and a hint of sadness in his eyes. Chapter 1286. What? We've been asleep for so long? Ingziyu and the rest were stunned. They were half dead and half alive. Most of the time they were asleep and had no way to calculate time. Both the Earth's living beings and the annihilators suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, the annihilators left, but the roots and veins of the Earth's living beings were passed down. We started a new era with a new civilization, led by technology and the economy. So you didn't fail. 100,000 years have passed. You protected Planet Destroyer and defeated the demons and the annihilators' henchmen. Then I came to investigate Planet Destroyer. So you didn't fail. The Earth's living beings reached an agreement to use the Spirit Guiding Formation and the Spirit Creation Well to revive the Spirit Qi and rebuild the glory of Earth. So you didn't fail. Zhang Tian spoke tirelessly about the great changes in the past 100,000 years. At the same time, he released his soul devourer's consciousness and merged it with theirs to share the outside world and his purpose in coming underground. Sensing that Zhang Tian's consciousness was harmless, Ingziyu and the rest closed their eyes and felt the information and vivid images in their consciousness. They saw skyscrapers rising from the ground, bustling streets in the city, lights shining like stars, people weaving in and out, and vehicles flowing like rivers. They saw rockets tearing through the sky and shooting straight at bullfights, fighter jets breaking the speed of sound, satellites rising into the sky, submarines sinking to the bottom of the sea, and the launching of sunflower lotuses. They saw people using the internet to communicate with each other from thousands of miles away, vivid and lifelike. They saw a lot of things. Good, this is great. We've won in the end. Some of them smiled in relief while others cried in excitement. The roots of the Earth's living beings are saved. The annihilators have retreated. But the demons are almost finished. There aren't many left. Most of them were demons, the kind that was good at drilling underground. Their bloodlines were ancient and powerful. Ingziyu was a pangolin demon that was countless times stronger than Baizhe. Her armor was as hard as iron and her claws were like steel hooks. Beside her were demons with the bloodlines of Xiao, Li and Zhuang. They all had their own strengths and techniques. In the ancient times, the human race and the demon race coexisted. Emperor Zhongli was a generous and tolerant man, and many of his ministers and generals were from the demon race. There's nothing we can do about it. Ao Huang released the immortal trap Great Formation, and the Earth's spiritual qi dried up. The human race can't hold on any longer. In any case, the retreat of the annihilators is a good thing. But I remember that not long ago the man in white came again. He might be a henchman of the annihilator. That lump of iron can fly. Although we can't cultivate on Earth now and there isn't much spiritual energy left, it's still a pretty good thing to have some tricks up its sleeve. It's useless. Other than the Kuelian, their military system, including nuclear weapons, could not be compared to that of the ancient times. He was still outdated. If the annihilators come again, just 100 of them will be enough to wipe out Earth. Didn't you say that you can revive the spiritual aura? Let's create another cultivation planet. You can't be so pessimistic. They discussed animatedly, and their spirit embryos and divine treasures rumbled as they conversed rapidly. It had been too long since they received information from the outside world. Everything that Zhang Tian showed them was very fresh, and they felt like their world had been turned upside down. Some were worried while others were inexplicably excited. Crack. Suddenly, a slight cracking sound was heard. Under the high temperature and pressure, the flat mountain earth drilling drill finally couldn't take it anymore, and several shocking cracks started to appear. "Mommy, I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm dead." Senior Grand Primordium said not to come in. "I'm dead for sure now." Ah Yu howled, so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He crawled down and hugged Zhang Tian's thigh, trembling. They were thousands of meters deep underground, and the danger level was not much lower than the depths of space. There were too many unknown dangers that could crush a golden core expert. Is it going to explode? Let's take a look. Ingziyu and the other ancient powerhouses were also frightened. They paddled the magma and flew to the side of the flat mountain earth drilling drill. They examined it carefully, knocked on it, scanned it with their divine senses, and stroked the complicated talisman arrays, trying their best to repair it. Their faces were full of worry. "No, this drilling Dharma artifact is different from ours. We can't do it. The runes are very unfamiliar and the components are completely different. Using crystals as energy is a completely different idea from using spiritual energy. It seems to be the way of Gu Tianzhu. Retreat quickly. Brother Grand Primordium, wait until you reach the divine transformation stage. No, it's best to reach the legendary void return stage. This place is dangerous." They also wanted to help Zhang Tian repair the cracks, so they were flustered. However, the results were minimal. This was not something they could handle at all. "We're almost at the destination. How can I retreat? I'll do it." Zhang Tian was in the cabin. He shouted, his fingers forming a seal, and the spirit creation technique was activated. Pa. Zhang Tian slapped a few times, and the seventh metal true essence formed a repair rune, flickering and floating on the cracks, quickly repairing the cracks, and soon it was as good as new. Amazing. What kind of method is this, using runes to repair itself? I've never seen it before. This kind of rune is a self-generating and transforming rune. It can repair the cracks and extract substances from the magma as supplements. It's very advanced. I've never seen it on Earth. Even the heavenly workers can't do it. What a wonderful work. What a wonderful work. Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium is clever and skillful. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Sure enough, the student is better than the master. Many of the soldiers and generals of the ancient digging vanguard army were shocked. They surrounded the drill and looked at it in amazement. They had a whole new level of respect for Zhang Tian. "This method of yours is too heaven-defying." Yu was so shocked that his chin almost fell to the ground. His eyes were dull and he couldn't believe it. This drill was a quasi-true weapon. The runes formed an array, and the construction of the magical equipment was very complicated. It would take at least 10 days to half a month to repair it, and it would also need the help of tools. However, Zhang Tian could completely repair it with a few waves of his hand. It was like a big joke. Not good. However, Zhang Tian's face sank and he secretly shouted. This flat mountain drilling drill had 4 sets of reactors and thrusters. However, hot magma had just entered the cracks and 2 of them had collapsed. This kind of collapse was not as simple as the rune arrays, but the collapse of the whole thing. It was like an engine that had exploded and it had to be repaired. If they forced it to move, the speed would be almost half of the original. Moreover, no one could say for sure when the other reactors and thrusters would also collapse. If that happened, they would lose their lives here. "Brothers, don't waste time," Ingziyu said loudly. "Help fellow cultivator Tai Chu move forward and figure out the precise location of planet destruction. Otherwise, the recovery of spirit chi will be nothing but empty words." Yes. The remnants of the vanguard army unleashed their vast power at the same time. Some of them turned into pangolins, some into lili, swine, fire chilan, and earth mouse. They pushed, pulled, and carried the drill deep into the ground without caring about their own safety. Go. Come on. For the recovery of spirit chi. For our home on Earth. For the 6 billion living beings, for our descendants, work hard. In the crimson lava flood, their spirit embryos and divine treasures were like worn-out bellows as they shouted, roared, and cheered each other on. Like crazy devils, their feet didn't stop as they rushed into the depths. The speed of the flat mountain drilling drill suddenly increased, even faster than before. It shot into the Earth's core like a whistling arrow. After another 1,000 or so li, A long belt of skeletons appeared 10 kilometers ahead. It was a vast expanse of white, boundless and shocking to the eye. Thousands of huge skeletons floated in the magma torrent, bobbing up and down. There were demons, devils and human cultivators who had already turned into white bones. Among the skeletons, broken weapons, broken warships and damaged magical equipment were everywhere too. The endless skeletons and broken weapons formed a vast wasteland that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was at least 10 kilometers away. Many of them were at the level of true weapons. They were incomparably sharp and their magic power fluctuations were strong. They could split mountains, break cities and split the sky. Zhang Tian's heart palpitated. This was an ancient battlefield where the gods and devils of earth had fought. Chapter 1287. Let's go, brothers. Advance army, there's no retreat, only forward. For our future generations. For the living beings on earth. Let's fight side by side. Impassioned shouts kept coming from the skeletons, as if ancient ferocious beasts were roaring. It was shocking. They had been dead for tens of thousands of years, turning into piles of bones. Their organs and vocal cords had long disappeared. Their spirit embryos and divine treasures were still rumbling, and their nascent souls and essence spirits were still shouting. As they got closer to the core of the earth and as they dived deeper, the temperature, pressure, earth fiend and earth fire became more terrifying. At this time, it was already very difficult for the remnants of the advance army to move forward. Some of the magma was colorful and looked very beautiful. However, it was extremely corrosive. Spirit treasure level armors and weapons would be corroded, and their bones would be turned into ashes instantly. Some of the substances were very magical and seemed to be able to devour their souls, causing them to be in extreme pain and scream miserably. However, the screams of the skeletons and the screams of the remnants of the vanguard formed a soul-stirring echo. Let's go. Let's fight side by side. The shouts of the skeletons seemed to bring endless motivation to the remnants of the advance army. More than 10 nascent soul cultivators could no longer bear it. However, they still didn't hesitate to burn their spirit embryos and divine treasures. Even if they were turned into ashes, they still pushed the earth drilling drill forward. Their consciousness and souls have long been destroyed, but for some reason they often shout, especially when we pass by. Ing Ziyu was moved. It's obsession. Zhang Tian looked around and was moved. An obsession that hasn't dissipated for 100,000 years. The obsession to find the planet destruction, the obsession to control the fate of our home. Zhang Tian saw that many of them were still in the posture before they died. It was a kind of posture of advancing. They endured the pain, gritted their teeth, bent their backs, stubbornly burning with passion and advanced. They were the sacrifices of the earth-digging advance army. Before the 2 stars of the South Gate, Emperor Xingzhongli and the other ancient sages decided to wander. They sent out 3,000 mighty figures to form the earth-digging advance army to dig out the planet destruction and wander with them to preserve the roots of human civilization. If he couldn't take it away, then he would destroy it. He definitely couldn't leave it for the annihilators or the experts from the outer realms. However, the mission was extremely dangerous and the chances of survival were slim. The Qing Emperor and the others decided that they would not force anyone. Instead, they would let the cultivators sign up themselves. Instantly, hundreds of thousands of cultivators fearlessly volunteered. In the end, these ancient elites were carefully selected. Each of them had reached the nascent soul level or even the soul formation level. Each of them had once dominated an area and controlled a country or a sect. However, in order to survive and protect the roots and veins of Earth's civilization, they chose to sacrifice themselves, excavate the Earth and search for the destruction of planets. They had to endure the high temperature and pressure of the underground lava, as well as the Earth Fiend poison gas. They also had to endure the interception and attacks of the supreme demons. Their comrades were sacrificed one after another, but they were not afraid. They continued to advance without stopping until they were only a few hundred kilometers away from star destruction. In the end, they failed on the verge of success. Some of them ran out of blood essence and vitality, and even their souls were destroyed, turning into dry bones. Some of them perished together with the intruders and the interceptors, sleeping thousands of kilometers below the ground, unknown to anyone. 3,000 warriors had dug tens of thousands of feet into the ground to rest here. For 100,000 years, their corpses and bones had existed forever. Their obsessions were undying, and their cries were as magnificent as a song. Demonic nature, too demonic. Aren't they human? Why are they not afraid of death? Why are they still shouting after death? His divine soul was gone, yet he was still shouting, still shouting. You are the demons. You are unreasonable. Young King Ashoka trembled in fear and howled miserably. I finally understand why my ancestors failed even though they were clearly stronger. His eyes were dull and he had a faint smile on his face. He was neurotic. This kind of consciousness was terrifyingly powerful. Even if their souls were gone, they had already turned into some kind of illusory substance. However, that kind of terrifying spirit and consciousness could not be erased even after tens of thousands of years. It was burning fiercely, shining, struggling and waiting. It was desperately trying to communicate with the latecomers and encourage them. Charge. Continue forward. The body of another mighty expert of the vanguard collapsed and was swallowed by the scorching magma. He used the last of his strength to push the earth drill and shouted. The muscles at the corner of Zhang Tian's eyes twitched and he said in a low voice, "Yingziyu, retreat. I still have 2 reactors and thrusters. There is still hope to get close to star extermination. I have already sensed that there are only a dozen or so kilometers left." No. Yingziyu's green hair fluttered and the scales on his skin cracked and melted. His face was also full of cracks like broken porcelain. However, his divine treasures were still rumbling and he shouted himself hoarse, "Don't use the earth drill anymore. Even if we die, we will ensure that nothing happens to you." "Marshal, are you here? Are you going to look for star extermination? I have waited for too long." Suddenly, the white skeletons stood up with difficulty. They struggled and swayed as they saluted Yingziyu with cupped fists. "Brothers, I am pushing our latecomers to look for star extermination deep underground." Yingziyu looked pained. "Where is the 8th Route Army of the Vanguard? Follow me to battle." A general who only had one leg left hopped under the earth drill and pushed with all his strength, roaring loudly. "General, we are here. Battle. Battle. The army behind us is finally here." More skeletons stood up and staggered forward in joy, fighting to be the first to push the earth drilling drill. "Where is the 1st Route Army? Sleep. Sleep my ass. Get up and push the cart. The 2nd Route Army can't fall behind. Don't embarrass me. Get up. Get up. That's my thigh. Why did you take it away? Give it back to me. Yours would have melted a long time ago." They were only skeletons left. There was no flesh on their bodies at all. Their nascent souls and primordial spirits were only shadows. Their magic power was weak, but their obsession was undying. When they heard the call, they stood up and called out to each other. Some of them took other people's thigh bones and put them under their crotch, causing a dispute. But soon they formed an army of 3,000 skeletons. Their divine treasures rumbled, their spirit embryos trembled, and their broken primordial spirits and nascent souls erupted with vital chi, turning into big hands, wings, and torrents that pushed the earth drill forward. "Senior, retreat. Retreat to a safe place. Go to Tunguska Devil Lake. There are no more enemies there." Zhang Tian shouted and gradually clenched his fists. In the silent cabin, there was a cracking sound as if 2 golden cores were being crushed. "Take care, grand beginning. Have a safe journey. Comrades, I'm counting on you." Yingziyu and the others retreated, tears of blood rolling down their cheeks. "One day I will get rid of the Annihilator, the culprit who destroyed the ancient cultivation civilization." But Zhang Tian's blood was boiling. "One day I will wake you up from the abyss of chaos and see the glory you have created with your own eyes." A surge of fighting spirit rushed to the top of his head as if it could pass through half of the earth, straight to the sky, straight to the bull. Finally, half an hour later, planet extermination was in sight. Planet extermination was as bright as a gem, glittering and translucent. Endless spirit chi was boiling around it. Zhang Tian's perception from Ayu's memories was still a bit blurry. When he saw it with his own eyes, he found that planet extermination was a few hundred kilometers wide. Zhang Tian's immortal will couldn't see the end of it at all. Planet extermination was an irregular polyhedron, almost like a sphere. It was emitting a bright light, making people unable to look at it directly. There were also hundreds of auxiliary array disks floating around it like planets, creating effects such as space sealing, spirit gathering, strangling, and hallucinating. Everything that got close to it would be killed. Between the formation discs, black demonic qi, multicolored spiritual qi and baleful aura took the form of ribbons, sheets, threads and feathers. They changed rapidly as they whistled and gushed out, pushing the lava out by over 50 kilometers and forming a vacuum. The magma was rolling but it couldn't get close. Only planet extermination remained motionless. It was as steady as a rock, as if it were an ancient planet that had existed since the beginning of time and nothing could shake it. Zhang Tian and the 3,000 skeleton warriors of the vanguard were like a bunch of ants in front of planet extermination. Chapter 1288. It's still immortal after 100,000 years. How terrifying. Zhang Tian was a bit surprised. He even saw it. Planet extermination was moving slightly as if it was breathing. From one of its spots, dense spiritual energy was gushing out like a tide. There was also a giant placenta a few hundred meters wide under the nozzle. Although the placenta was already empty, there were still 13 umbilical cords wriggling like pythons. That was where the fiend infant was born. This placenta can give birth to a sacred prince, a deity fetus and a divine infant. Zhang Tian's eyes flashed with greed and his heart was beating fast. After he obtained the darkest stone tablet, the Dinghai pearl and the blood of the ancestor Kunping, he had been considering whether to form the chaotic golden core and build the chaotic divine body. However, he didn't do it right away. The chaotic divine body was the most powerful body in the universe, much more powerful than normal deity bodies and divine bodies. It would require a lot of spirit qi to complete it. Even though Zhang Tian had 6 divine-grade fake elixirs and many divine materials, he wasn't 100% confident. He wanted to form the chaotic golden core in another dimension or the ruins of deity. However, if he used star destruction, he could increase the probability to the point where there was almost no chance of failure. Star destruction contained too much spirit qi and energy. It contained more than half of the spirit qi on ancient Earth and even the spirit qi of other planets. Even if Zhang Tian used it to create the chaotic divine body, he would only use less than 1/10 of it or even less. But in the end, Zhang Tian still didn't use the placenta and star destruction to cultivate and break through. Because Qing'er was about to give birth and he couldn't wait any longer. He had to revive the spirit qi. He couldn't wait any longer. I'll revive the spirit qi first. Star destruction isn't a normal spirit gathering dharma artifact. Even if I use the 9 dragons guiding array, I'm afraid there'll be some left. Then I'll go underground again and cultivate here. Zhang Tian quickly made up his mind. If star destruction's spirit qi was completely sucked dry, he wouldn't be able to form the chaotic golden core. Zhang Tian didn't care. As the old saying goes, nothing is more important than a wife and children. Zhang Tian made up his mind. He didn't dare to stay here for too long because the mountain could be destroyed at any time. Leave the secondary anchor behind, let's go. With a thought from Zhang Tian, an array disc-like artifact flew out of the myriad origin cauldron and attached itself to star destruction. Go. Let's go. Let's go. Many white bones of the vanguard pushed Zhang Tian's mountain-crushing earth-drilling drill, whooshing toward the sky as fast as lightning. In just 2 or 3 days after Zhang Tian defeated the Tunguska demon lake, the entire earth was turned upside down. The Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel, the new king of Atlantis Geoffrey, the pharaoh king of the Black Pyramid, and the king of divine elephants on the banks of the Ganges River all rushed to express their loyalty to Zhang Tian. Atlantis was once suppressed by the kingdom of heaven and became a lost civilization. They could only live in seclusion at the bottom of the sea, unable to see the light of day. It can be seen that the dimensional world is hostile to our civilization. Only under the leadership of the Taichu Alliance can we recover spirit qi and strengthen ourselves. Only then can we resist the invasion of the dimensional world. Otherwise, the civilization of Earth will repeat the same mistakes and become a second Atlantis. In the Spanish Bay, exquisite golden cities emerged from the sea. Geoffrey and his mother walked to the top of the castle and expressed their allegiance to Zhang Tian and the mythological alliance through the media. Their words were humble and their attitude was very sincere. Geoffrey even expressed his willingness to recognize Zhang Tian, the enemy who killed his father, as his father. He was heartbroken about Amu's rebellious behavior of waging war against Zhang Tian. Regardless of whether Zhang Tian agreed or not, he unilaterally announced that he was Zhang Tian's adopted son and shouted excitedly, My adopted father has shown my people the hope of rising again. Long live the humans of Earth. Long live the recovery of spirit qi. Long live my adopted father Kong Taichu. The civilization of Earth will never decay. Obviously, the leader of the Taichu alliance is the savior and hero of mankind. The Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel seemed to have forgotten that he had declared war against Zhou Xian. Facing the media, he said sincerely, "Only the leader of the Taichu alliance can save the civilization of Earth. No one else can do it. He is the only hope of mankind." The sinner Assyrian is willing to lead the descendants of ancient Babylon to join the mythological alliance. We will unite around the leader of the Taichu alliance and fight for Earth. We will fight for the ruins of immortality and sacrifice our lives. Then the masters of the Egyptian pyramids, the banks of the Ganges River in India, and other secret realms also expressed their loyalty to Zhou Xian. Some patted their chests loudly and some cried bitterly, saying that they had been bewitched and threatened by Tungus before. They had always been hardcore fans of the leader of the Taichu alliance. The masters of the secret realms of ancient Babylon, ancient India, ancient Wuxia, and ancient Egypt have all bowed their heads to Kong Taichu. This time, the leader of the Taichu alliance has really dominated the world. Hera sighed meaningfully. The establishment of the global mythological alliance. No one can stop the recovery of spirit qi. Around her, many martial artists and superpowered people nodded in agreement. Their eyes were full of certainty. Not only these masters but even the mortal world, from the heads of state to the commanders of the three armies, to the peddlers and pawns, had also realized this. One Tungus could destroy Russia, one Black Pyramid could overturn Egypt. But Zhou Xian had suppressed them all in an hour. Under Zhou Xian's control, many big countries were just small places that could be crushed at any time. In front of Zhou Xian, the heads of state could only bow their heads and keep quiet. Kong Taichu is so powerful. He can subdue the ancient civilizations. He is so great. At this time, billions of people around the world were exclaiming and praising. In the mortal world, Zhou Xian had countless fanatical fans and believers. Many people called him Star Lord Zhang, Realm Master, God of Taichu, Ruler, and so on. It meant the Lord of the planet and the leader of the world. But even more people called him Savior. These ancient civilizations all support Kong Taichu. It can be seen that Kong Taichu's recovery of spirit qi is very correct. Someone said in hindsight. Lotus Tathagata represents the ancient Indian civilization, the preaching famous families represent the ancient Wuxia, and now the ancient Babylon civilization also supports him. Of the 4 ancient civilizations in the world, only the forces of ancient Egypt don't have support. It can be seen that Kong Taichu is indeed a man of great talent and strategy. An anthropologist said with certainty. But when Zhou Xian came back, it was much, much faster than when he left. Whoosh. After only a few hours, Zhou Xian's Dharma artifact came out of the Tunguska Fiend Lake and landed on the ground. When Zhou Xian appeared in front of everyone again, the news spread like lightning across the entire world. Billions of people were in an uproar. The god of Taichu is back. Our leader is back. When they saw Zhou Xian coming, the leaders of the Earth Defense Coalition Army and the leaders of various countries had already been waiting around Tunguska. The people of Tianqing School and the members of the Myth Alliance were even more ecstatic at this moment. Welcome, leader of the Taichu Alliance. Countless martial artists around the world, including the old monsters of the secret realms, gathered there and knelt down. The rolling sound waves rushed into the sky, shocking people. We welcome the return of the Savior. Even the leaders of the major countries except Wuxia knelt down to Zhou Xian and worshipped him respectfully. This scene was transmitted to billions of people around the world through cameras and screens. It was especially shocking and dumbfounding. Many people associated this scene with the French President Sun Qi kneeling to Zhou Xian. But the difference was that at that time Zhou Xian was the saboteur and Sun Qi was full of resentment and humiliation. And now Zhou Xian was the savior of the world. Many great figures and leaders prostrated themselves before him, feeling only admiration, sincerity, and willingness. The Tunguska incident fully proved that Kong Taichu alone had the strength comparable to a country or even Earth. It also let everyone see the beautiful prospects of the recovery of spirit qi and the infinite potential of mankind. This incident directly contributed to the formation of the Global Myth Alliance and the recovery of spirit qi. Kong Teichu opened the door of evolution for mankind with his own strength and started a new era. The Grand Nirvana era has arrived. Hundreds of years later, the world's leading expert in the history of cultivation, Peter Chin, wrote in his monograph, An Overview of the Global Cultivation Civilization. He was not stingy with his praise. Jiang Tian slightly raised his hands and motioned for everyone to get up. Little thing. Sect Master. Master. Jiang Chongding, Jiang Zhixing, Yi Ziwei, Qin Yang, Shen Mange and the others had already come to greet him. They were very worried. Jiang Tian went deep underground, which was as dangerous as going into outer space alone. They did not know how Jiang Tian was doing. Jiang Tian looked at these concerned eyes and only felt that the risk of death was worth it. He smiled and said, Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. The location of planet destruction has been confirmed. This sentence directly made Yi Ziwei, Shen Mange and the others cry. So far, the most important part of the recovery of spirit qi was completed. The rest would be smooth sailing. If there were any problems, they would only be technical problems. Jiang Chongding nodded and said with relief, To be able to reach the 9th heaven and dare to go underground to explore, my grandson is amazing. There was not much delay. Jiang Tian was worried about Qing'er and soon returned to Sidoni's main training hall. When the husband and wife met, they held hands and looked at each other with tears in their eyes, crying and laughing. It was only at this moment that Jiang Tian was completely relieved. Qing'er and the child could finally be saved. Qing'er's body was fine, but she was about to give birth. Jiang Tian first signed a soul contract with the experts and immediately began to recover spirit qi. A new era was about to arrive. Chapter 1289. It was the eve of the establishment of the Global Mythology Alliance. At the Sidoni International Airport, many Air Force One planes took off and landed. Politicians from all over the world had gathered there. From the Sidoni National Airport to the capital San Juan, there was a long line of cars that stretched for tens of miles. None of the cars were ordinary. They were all super luxury cars such as Maseratis and Lamborghinis. Some were low-key and steady such as BMW and Mercedes-Benz, but they had the logo of foreign envoys. They were the cars of leaders of various countries and famous cultivation sections. The worst ones were the leaders of corporations and CEOs of the Fortune 500. This time, the leaders of the top 5, the famous families of the Qin dynasty, the Assyrian king of the Tower of Babel, the new king of Atlantis Geoffrey, the pharaoh of Egypt and many other overlords gathered here to meet Jiang Tian. Firstly, they congratulated Jiang Tian on getting unprecedented support for his plan to revive spirit qi. Secondly, they congratulated Jiang Tian on becoming the leader of the Global Mythology Alliance, signing a divine soul contract and completely submitting to Jiang Tian. After all, although Jiang Tian was called the top overlord on Earth, it was only a rumor in the underground world. Now many ancient forces had submitted and formed the Mythology Alliance. Jiang Tian was the leader, which was equivalent to an official announcement to officially establish his position. For example, the CEOs of the Fortune 500 and the leaders of the consortiums weren't qualified to meet Jiang Tian. They could only attend the ceremony from afar to show their support and respect for Jiang Tian. On both sides of the street, countless residents of Sidoni were shocked. Oh my God, our national prestige is so grand now. Even the President of the United States is here. He bowed to the true God of Taichu on the news. What's the big deal? I saw the Prime Minister of Japan kneel as if he were a believer seeing a true God. All of this was brought to us by the true God of Taichu. That's right. The primordial true God is going to revive spirit qi. Wuxia and Sidoni will benefit the most. Also, we have the Quillian technology in our hands. These superpowers will have to rely on us. Jiang Tian didn't even bother to meet the leaders of the various countries and the heads of the financial groups. He only left them to Qin Yang and the other outer sect disciples. Jiang Tian only needed to meet Asher, the owner of the Tower of Babel, Geoffrey, the new king of Atlantis, Li Wuji of the Pre-Qin dynasty and the Kunlun sect, the ghost emperor of Mount Mang and the demon emperor of Dragon Pool. This was the backbone of the Myth Alliance and the main force that would protect Earth in the future. The sinner, the king of Assyria, greets the leader of the Taichu Alliance and expresses his sincere apologies. The king of Assyria bowed deeply, his hands trembling slightly. It's fine. Jiang Tian smiled and said, Since you are loyal and willing to sign a soul contract with me, You are my comrade in arms. Let's put aside our differences and fight side by side. Geoffrey greets the leader of the Taichu alliance. Next to the king of Assyria, Geoffrey, the king of Atlantis, bowed to the ground piously. Even though Zhou Xian had killed his father and the ancestral patriarch of the true dragon and the others had almost destroyed the city of Atlantis, he had no choice but to submit. If the leader of the Taichu alliance doesn't mind, please adopt Geoffrey as your son. This is the greatest consolation for Amu. That was the queen of Amu. She was beautiful and charming. Her waist was slim and her chest was high. She looked up at Zhou Xian with tears in her eyes. She wanted to throw herself into Zhou Xian's arms and beg for mercy. I'm very sorry about what happened to your father. However, he died peacefully and didn't suffer much. Zhou Xian didn't say anything and didn't even look at the queen. Thank you, leader of the Taichu alliance. As your warriors, the Atlantean civilization listens to you the most. We'll go wherever you need us and settle down wherever you need us. The Atlantean civilization must remember the kindness of the leader of the Taichu alliance and save the people of the dimensional world from the abyss of suffering. We'll put the red flag of the mythical alliance in every corner of the ruins of deity. However, Mu's widow and son knelt down with tears of gratitude. They looked so loyal that they wanted to gouge out their hearts. Countless people were moved when they saw this scene, and they wrung their hands and sighed as they deeply realized Zhou Xian's current might. This is the leader of the mythical alliance, the most powerful person in the world and the leader of the four worlds. Whoever dares to offend him will have to surrender even if they kill your people. Otherwise you'll be wiped off the face of the earth. Yi Tianren said with his hands behind his back. Many disciples of Tianqing school were full of pride. At the moment, the Tianqing sect had 4 nascent soul cultivators and 3 false core cultivators. The remaining sky immortals, earth immortals and human immortals were all gathered. They were so powerful that they could sweep across earth and no other force would dare to resist. Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, may our friendship last forever. In the end, Li Wuji bowed slightly and shook hands with Zhou Xian. His face was full of reverence. Of course, the daily affairs of the mythical alliance can't be done without your support. Zhou Xian nodded and patted Li Wuji's shoulder. He smiled faintly and meaningfully. Seeing the overlords of the Yu family, the Yin family, the Ji family, the Jiang family and the other family lords of the Preaching dynasty all turned pale and lost all hope. If people like Yu Jingtian and Yu Wending hadn't made a mistake when Kong Teichu extended the olive branch, we would have become the core of the mythical alliance just like Li Wuji. At least our status wouldn't be much lower than Li Wuji's, a family leader said. His words were like heavy hammers hitting everyone's chests. They were indescribably regretful. Many members of the Preaching sect couldn't help but feel regretful. Their faces were extremely pale and their hands were trembling violently. A single tree couldn't form a forest. Zhou Xian knew that unity was strength. Originally, Zhou Xian wanted to join forces with the Kunlun sect and the famous Preaching sects to form a mythological alliance. They would have held important positions, but now they only had the qualifications to observe the ceremony. Then, the Mythical Alliance announced the establishment of the Mythical Alliance and signed a divine soul contract with the Global Defense Alliance, the Secret Land and the Grotto Heavens. The declaration said, all races, governments, mortal and cultivation organizations in the world support the revival of spirit qi and share cultivation arts to achieve the evolution and strengthening of human beings. After the recovery of spirit qi, the 3 races, the demons, the ghosts and any other races had to take humans as the core and fight alongside them. They were not allowed to invade the human world. Otherwise they would be killed without mercy. Cultivators should fight for the mortal world. The hot blood of the strong should flow for the weak. They must not invade or interfere with the order of the mortal world. Before the threat of the ruins of immortality, all races and forces should fight for the human community on Earth. They must fight against the ruins of immortality and must not seek refuge with hostile worlds such as the ruins of immortality. Those who violate the contract will be killed without mercy. Regardless of race, civilization, armed force, social group or individual, as long as they are willing to fight against the atrocities of the ruins of immortality, they are part of the mythical alliance and can sign this contract. Earth should unite with Heavenly Star, Heavenly State, West Earth, and all forces against the atrocities of the ruins of immortality and the other worlds to form a solid alliance. Finally, after the meeting ended, Zhang Tian finally announced that the spirit guiding array would be activated immediately and the revival of spirit qi on a global scale. In the command and control room, President Bush of the United States, the new Russian Emperor President Jung of the European Union, and other big shots gathered one by one, looking at the big screen with anticipation and nervousness. On the outer floor there were also the figures of the King of Assyria, Jeffrey, Li Wuji, and other major powerhouses on Earth. In addition, there were also reporters from major media outlets around the world, such as BBC, CNN, Reuters, the Daily News. Hundreds of media outlets gathered together and aimed their cameras at Zhang Tian, the heads of state and the people. Through their lenses, the 6 billion people around the world were either holding their phones, sitting in front of their computers, or sitting in front of the TV with their families, holding hands, watching with rapt attention, expectant and nervous. At this moment, the whole world was silent. At this moment, the hearts of the 6 billion people around the world were beating in unison for Zhang Tian and the revival of spirit qi. Chapter 1290. Sidoni Tianqing School's main dojo 9 Dragons Spirit Guiding Array and Spirit Making Well are ready. The array pattern is correct. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. The spirit qi recovery seed is filled and ready to be activated. Ready. Hong Ye's body straightened as he saluted Zhang Tian and reported. Wuxia's Mount Amei Dojo Spirit Guiding Array and Spirit Making Well. The array pattern is correct. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. Ready. On the other side of the earth, Huang Linger's voice came through the earpiece and resounded in everyone's ears. She was wearing the uniform of the Myth Alliance, and her solemn and beautiful face was also presented on the screen. Wuxia's Shinong Valley Dojo Spirit Guiding Array and Spirit Making Well. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. The spirit qi recovery seed is filled and ready to be activated. Ready. Shin Mange's voice came from the screen. Wuxia's Kunlun Mountain Spirit Guiding Array and Spirit Making Well. The magic equipment is operating normally. The angle is calibrated correctly. The spirit qi recovery seed is filled and ready to be activated. Ready. Wuxia's Tianshan Dojo, Wuxia's Taishan Dojo, Wuxia's Diansong Dojo. Voices and images came one by one. Everyone was focused and meticulous. Their eyes were filled with expectation and unyielding fighting spirit. Rocky Mountain Spirit Guiding Point in the United States. South America's Spirit Guiding Point. Russia's Tunguska Spirit Guiding Point. Babel Spirit Guiding Point in Central Asia. Then came the images and voices from the international world. Wuxia had the most spirit guiding arrays and spirit making wells. Other countries only had one or even a few. On the one hand, Zhang Tian was a descendant of the Yellow Emperor. Naturally, outsiders could not benefit. On the other hand, Wuxia was also the country that firmly supported the spirit qi recovery and gave the most resources. In the end, all the voices converged into one sentence. All dojos are ready. Please instruct us, Taichu. At this moment, Zhang Tian's face showed a trace of determination. He waved his hand and said, for the continuation of Earth's civilization, spirit qi recovery. All spirit guiding arrays activate the spirit qi recovery seed. Boom. At that moment, the entire Earth seemed to tremble. Countless buildings shook as if there was an earthquake. But it was still all right. In the previous month, the world had spent a lot of money to build many refugee camps, move the people and strengthen the buildings. Therefore there were no casualties. On a global scale, the spiritual qi recovery seeds in more than 10 spirit guiding arrays spurted out at the same time and struck the planet destruction strike deep inside Earth. Rumble. In the depths of Earth, star destruction suddenly awakened. Like the most terrifying primordial beast, he crazily devoured the incoming spirit qi. However, at the next moment on the surface of the Earth, countless spirit guiding array discs began to operate, emitting a bright light. The spirit qi suddenly became incomparably violent, madly pouring into the array. It was like a nuclear explosion. No. Star Destruction's artifact spirit let out a terrified scream before exploding with a loud boom. Together with the earth malevolent miasma underground and the boiling lava, countless spiritual energies rushed out like waves crashing against the shore. United States Yellowstone National Park. The temperature is soaring. So fast. I hope it won't erupt. A few geologists were checking the temperature of the hot spring on the surface. The data in front of them was shocking. It shouldn't be. One of the fat men said casually while eating a burger. The geological structure is very complicated. The geological structure of this place is very complicated. Intense volcanic activity once occurred here, but the last eruption was 640,000 years ago. He glanced at the Black Hawk helicopter not far away and joked, "The military even sent a helicopter. What a fuss." But at this moment the hot spring bubbled and hot air filled the air like boiling water. The temperature on the thermometer soared and suddenly exploded. The ground also shook violently. Everyone couldn't stand steadily. The fat man glared, threw away his burger and ran shouting, "Get on the helicopter." Everyone scrambled up the helicopter. On the helicopter, the Air Force general grabbed the walkie-talkie and reported to the military. The Black Hawk hovered in the air. Streams of crimson lava gushed out, reaching a height of several hundred meters. Yellowstone Park was engulfed in a sea of fire. Black smoke billowed and volcanic ash filled the air. Small animals ran around randomly, screaming miserably. The Black Hawk helicopter was like a fly, dodging between the huge red pillar and the fireworks. It brushed past the lava several times. 2012, the end of the world didn't come. Damn, 2013 actually came. The fat man's eyes widened and his body trembled. In fact, not only Yellowstone National Park but all the volcanic belts in the world, including the Pacific Rim, the Mediterranean Sea, the Himalayas and the Oceanic Ridge, all shook together and countless volcanoes erupted. The eruption of the Oceanic Ridge volcanic belt was even more shocking. The Atlantic Ridge, the Indian Ridge and the East Pacific Ridge. The endless hot lava was cooled by the seawater and formed islands. Some of the lava rushed out of the sea and fell, forming islands and mountains. At the same time, earth-shattering tsunamis and violent hurricanes formed. Monstrous waves that were hundreds of meters high were unprecedented in human history. They drowned coastal cities. Tokyo sunk. Hundreds of thousands of people were drowned alive. However, luckily the other cities were well prepared and no one was killed or injured. Zhou Xian ordered, "Spirit attraction." Many spirit attraction arrays suddenly spun in the opposite direction and shook crazily. Many Dharma treasures shone brightly and a strong suction force was formed, drawing the spirit chi of planet destruction to the ground like a black hole. The earthquake suddenly stopped and the volcanoes also stopped erupting. At that moment the world suddenly changed. Everyone was delighted to see that. A colorful auspicious chi gushed out and covered the sky above Sidonia, Wuxia, Europe and the United States. Endless spirit chi surged out of the spirit wells like a broken dam. Thousands of rays of light and thousands of auspicious colors were shot out. Spirit chi turned into rain and fog in many places where spirit chi was restored. It then turned into a heavy rain and fell down. Everyone saw that. Under the nourishment of the spirit rain, the seeds instantly sprouted, took root, grew branches and spread leaves. In just a few seconds they had turned into towering trees. What abundant spirit chi! Many powerful cultivators were shocked to feel the unimaginably rich spiritual chi in the surroundings. They sighed with emotion. The spirit chi restoration is the greatest transition and evolution of the cultivation environment on Earth in the past 100,000 years. It's the biggest change in history. A new era has begun. Our time has come. Many cultivators looked at the sky with glitters in their eyes. They were excited and couldn't calm down. In fact, one mountain range after another rose up, and the continents were expanding and growing as they headed toward the cultivation planets. However, most of these places were in the mountains and the cities weren't affected at the moment. There were only slight earthquakes. If this continues for a year, the Earth will probably double in size. A geologist said dumbfoundedly as he looked at the test data. The spiritual chi seemed to have a life of its own as it flowed out from the spiritual guiding array in all directions, from the famous mountains and great rivers to the city. The spiritual chi was like musk and orchids, with a strong fragrance that made people feel refreshed with just a whiff. Wuxia, Zhongyuan Province, Post House District, Wuxia No. 1008 Refugee Camp. Damn you, Kongti. Why the hell are you reviving spirit chi? I was chased out of $1 million villa by the officials and came to the refugee camp. An old man with a crooked mouth, slanted eyes, and saliva dripping from his mouth was sitting in a wheelchair. He was exasperated and hysterical. Suddenly, the alarm sounded and the broadcaster's voice spread throughout the entire refugee camp. There will be a slight tremor in 10 minutes. However, my building has been specially reinforced and is enough to deal with it. Please don't panic. Damn you, Kong Teichu. You've killed me. Earthquake. Spirit chi restoration my ass. The disheveled old man was a maniac who cursed madly at the dart plate made of Zhang Tian's portrait, cursing vaguely. The dart plate was already densely packed with needle holes, almost turning into a sieve. It was difficult for this old man to still be able to shoot darts and hit Zhang Tian's portrait despite suffering from a stroke and being paralyzed in half. It was clear how much he hated Zhang Tian. At this moment, the world shook and the buildings trembled violently. Smoke and dust rolled down and filled the air. The old man jumped up in fright and rushed outside, cursing, "This is a slight tremor? Damn it, this is even scarier than a magnitude 8 earthquake." He ran a few steps. Suddenly, he was stunned and muttered, "My paralysis has been cured. I can speak clearly and even run. My arthritis is cured. It doesn't hurt at all. My emphysema is also cured. My vitiligo." At this moment, cheers spread throughout the entire refugee camp. Many people's illnesses were alleviated or completely disappeared in an instant. The serious and chronic illnesses also improved significantly. Almost everyone could feel the recovery of spirit chi. They suddenly realized that the air between heaven and earth was so pure and refreshing. Countless flowers bloomed in the courtyard in an instant. It was like heaven. This is the effect of the recovery of spirit chi. Kong Teichu once said that if the recovery of spirit chi succeeds, our bodies will be healthier. Suddenly, someone came to a realization. Thank you, Kong Teichu. Thank you, True God Taichu. After everyone came to a realization, they all kowtowed. True God Taichu, invincible, eternal. Savior. The old man even held the dart plate made of Zhang Tian's surrender and raised it high for everyone to worship. Under Zhang Tian's portrait, countless people gathered. Some raised their arms and shouted, while others knelt on the ground, shedding tears of gratitude. Chapter 1291. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Tianqing school training hall in Qing'er's bedroom, Zhao Xueqing was lying on a bed made of chalcedony. Her face was covered in cold sweat and she gritted her teeth. Her clothes were already soaked in cold sweat. Around the chalcedony bed, rich spiritual energy gushed powerfully and flowed continuously into Zhao Xueqing's body. The bedroom of Zhang Tian and his wife was located above the world's largest spiritual guiding array, the Nine Dragons Spiritual Guiding Array. The mouth of the spirit creation well was directly facing her bed, so it was convenient for her to absorb and use it. Therefore, the spiritual energy here was the most condensed and vigorous in the world. At this time, Zhao Xueqing's body was like a huge black hole with an unparalleled suction force. Not only did she absorb all the gushing spiritual energy, but she also plundered the surrounding spiritual energy, so that a huge vortex with a radius of 1 mile formed above the roof. It was dark and heavy, and from time to time, there were thunderous explosions and spiritual rain falling. She's going to give birth. She's going to give birth. It's been 3 hours. She should have given birth by now. In the living room outside the bedroom, Jiang Chongqing, Jiang Zhixing, Zhang Wanqing, Yiziwei, Jiang Bangxia, and the others were all busy and anxious like ants on a hot pan. On Zhao Xueqing's side, Zhao Huqing and his family had also rushed over. They had been anxiously guarding and waiting there. Why is it taking so long? Why isn't my brother-in-law here yet? This is too much. Zhao Qianru wiped the hot sweat on her forehead. Her sister giving birth made her very nervous, as if she was giving birth herself. Zhang Tian is presiding over the recovery of spiritual energy, but I heard that it has reached the spiritual guiding stage. He should be here soon. Jiang Zhixing explained. What's more important than his wife giving birth? When did he become such a saint? The spiritual energy of the world has nothing to do with us. Zhang Wanqing was so angry that her eyes were slightly red and she was about to swear. If anything happens to my daughter-in-law and my precious granddaughter, I don't want to live anymore. I'll skin this bastard alive. Our son is close at hand and he can multitask. He knows the situation here. Don't worry. Jiang Zhixing held his lover's sweaty hand and comforted her in a soft voice. Qing'er is a good girl. She will be fine. Zhang Tian is back. Right at this moment, Zhang Tian flew into the hall. Everyone hurriedly went up to greet him, talking all at once. Zhang Tian grabbed Zhang Tian's hand. His whole body was trembling and tears flowed down his face as he said, Zhang Tian, if you can only save one, then save Qing'er. Our Zhang family cannot lose her. Grandpa, don't worry. I'll protect both of them. Zhang Tian's expression was firm. He raised his hand to signal everyone not to say anything more and quickly walked into Qing'er's bedroom. With a wave of his hand, the door closed. Zhang Tian, I can't hold on any longer. Seeing Zhang Tian appear, the 2 lines of coldness that had been in her eye sockets for a long time finally surged out from Zhao Xueqing's eyes. Zhao Xueqing bit her lower lip, panted and groaned in extreme pain. It's okay. I'm here. Zhang Tian stepped forward and held Zhao Xueqing's sweaty hand. He forced himself to calm down and scanned with his divine sense. He was shocked. The devouring power of Qing'er and his precious daughter, the stainless phoenix maiden, was too strong. 1/10 of planet destruction's spiritual energy was gathered here. The spiritual energy of the 9 spirit energy recovery seeds was almost completely devoured, but it still couldn't fill up the black hole-like physique. Now Qing'er's physique was abnormally weak and her meridians were dry. Fortunately, Zhang Tian had made more than 10 spirit guiding arrays. Otherwise, Qing'er and the child would have been hard to save. It seems that I can only draw half of the world's spiritual energy to this place. Zhang Tian's hands trembled slightly, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. He stomped his right foot on the ground and made a hand seal, pressing it on the huge array disk arranged at the head of the bed. NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the United States. As the organization with the most advanced aerospace technology on Earth, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the United States monitored all anomalies in the entire solar system all year round. However, they hadn't observed any anomalies over the years, except for the time when Zhang Tian ejected 10 flying swords on the Sword Tomb Island. Station Master Charles, I think you're too tired after working for 24 hours straight. We should go have a cup of coffee to refresh ourselves. Inside the Milky White Witness space station in the planetary observation room, Schroeder looked at his colleague with a cup of coffee and said respectfully, I think I'll definitely make a major discovery after carefully observing Earth this time. Charles stared at the screen and adjusted all kinds of instruments. I know that earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are frequent all over the world during the spirit energy recovery era, but those are the targets of the ground staff's monitoring. I think it shouldn't be enough to cause changes in the level of space. Schroeder smiled bitterly. Charles was the astronaut who observed Zhang Tian releasing the flying swords on the Sword Tomb Island last time. At that time, Zhang Tian's flying swords were thought to be cosmic rays. However, this information was eventually sent to the higher-ups of the United States. After being decrypted by the Pentagon, they realized that it was Zhang Tian's flying swords. Zhang Tian was also the first human in history to make matter rush out of Earth and reach outer space with his own strength. This also became the last straw that broke the Pentagon's back, making them completely give up resistance and submit to Zhang Tian. In order to commemorate Charles's major discovery, this space station was named the Witness. Charles was also directly promoted from a low-level observer to the station master. Now, the Witness was also one of the most advanced space stations in the world. It had a gravity simulation system and the largest space radio telescope to detect every movement in the depths of the starry sky and the desolate outer space. However, as soon as Schroeder finished speaking, Station Master Charles's face suddenly turned pale. His body trembled slightly as he exclaimed, "Look! This. Oh my God." Schroeder hurried to the front of the screen and looked at it carefully. He was also shocked and trembled violently. He saw the Earth tremble slightly. The entire atmosphere was like an inflated balloon, expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. It had expanded by thousands of meters, tens of thousands of meters, tens of thousands of meters. All of a sudden, with the Kunlun Mountain as the leader, the spiritual energy that had been gushing out of more than 10 subarrays of the spirit guiding array around the world suddenly turned into dragons of spiritual energy, which let out earth-shattering roars and flew out with bared fangs and brandished claws. These spirit chi dragons had lofty horns and were thousands of miles long. Their waists were as thick as mountains like the Yangtze River and the Yellow River, as if they were the Great Wall of spirit chi. Their bodies seemed to be carved out of jade. Dragon horns and scales were crystal clear and their eyes were like huge pearls, shining brightly and releasing dazzling rays of light. They passed through the mountains, swept across the earth, flew into the clouds and drilled into the sea, quickly rushing toward Sidoni. Oh my God! This is not the power of a human. Schroeder's coffee cup rolled to the ground instantly. He didn't even notice the hot coffee pouring on his feet. Instead he trembled and exclaimed. Almost at the same time, scientific research institutions around the world and even ordinary people caught sight of the shocking spirit chi dragons. The spirit chi dragons roared and shook the mountains and rivers, covering the sky and the sun. They went through the clouds and over the mountains, roaring and breaking through the sky at a speed comparable to the speed of sound. Kong Teichu's power is too powerful. One person can move the earth and one person can shake the world. For a moment all the countries were shocked. All the senior officials were dumbfounded and all the overlords were frightened. They're here. They're here. 9 dragons facing the phoenix. Today I'm going to help you to achieve phenomenal success. At the same time, Jiang Tian held Qing'er's hand tightly and scanned half of the earth with his immortal will. There was a joyful smile on his face. 1, 2, 3. In the end, a total of 9 giant spirit chi dragons arrived above the Sidoni Tianqing School's training hall one after another. Each dragon stretched across the entire border of Sidoni, covering the sky and the sun. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end of it. There were thousands of auspicious lights around them and the spirit chi they emitted could turn into clouds and mist. The light was bright and suddenly turned into a downpour. Every person who bathed in it was blessed by endless blessings. They gained wisdom, strengthened their bodies and strengthened their minds. The power of the Taichu true God is endless. The 9 dragons worship and thousands of spirit chi gather. Seeing this shocking miracle, countless Sidoni citizens walked out of the door in the rain of spirit chi and knelt on the ground, praising the Taichu true God. Spirit chi dragons, 9 dragons gather. I heard that Kong Teichu's wife is going to give birth today. Is he going to create a supreme spirit fetus or deity fetus? I'm afraid so. This is 10 times more powerful than the ancient deity's 3 flowers and 5 chi's unification. The Taichu alliance leader is so powerful. It's like an ancient deity repairing the sky. How generous. The king of Assyria, Geoffrey, Li Wuji and the others walked out of the door and looked up at the 9 spirit chi dragons in shock. Their eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Hey. With such amazing talents and methods, why should we be afraid of the ruins emperor? This method of gathering spirit chi is too powerful. If we can master a little, we can enter the nascent soul realm and seek the supreme Tao. Even the 4 nascent soul cultivators, Zhenlong, Takong, Lianxing and Mingyi, were dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. Shattering the planet extermination array spirit and gathering the spirit chi of the world was already the work of a deity. Even the ancient sages couldn't do it. And now he had turned the spirit chi of the world into 9 dragons and passed through earth to gather there. He was making up for his wife's cultivation and forging a supreme deity body. Even Zhenlong and Takong had never heard of or seen anything like that before. Even the super grand cultivators in the central galaxy deep in the universe might not be able to master such an incredible method. Today I'm going to go against nature and break the laws of this world. Dragons come. Looking at Qing'e, whose hair was drenched in sweat and whose eyes were brimming with tears, who kept sucking in cold breaths and screaming miserably, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with a tenderness that couldn't be dispelled. A shred of determination flashed in his eyes as he let out a low shout. Boom! 9 spirit chi dragons surged down and charged into Zhou Xueqing's body. Chapter 1292. Use the Dharma spells to absorb and refine it. Jiang Tian reminded Qing'e. His hands moved like butterflies and he performed all the Dharma spells he had learned in his life. He formed a few Dharma spells and pressed them on Qing'er's swollen belly. Her long hair and sleeves fluttered without any wind. At that moment, Zhou Xueqing's body let out beams of light. Her bones were like jade, her flesh was like crystal, her organs were like jade and her blood was like mercury. The blood in her body flowed like mercury as her dantian furiously devoured surging and vast spirit energy. It emitted a rumbling sound that was like a great river that shook the entire heavenly clear school and even spread out to several dozen kilometers away. It was like a thunderclap, causing the experts in the training grounds to be extremely terrified. Countless rays of golden light, rays of light and dragons and phoenixes appeared on Zhou Xian's body. Rays of light surrounded her and many Dharma laws appeared in the air. Countless energy of order spread from the sky, as if she were created by the Dharma laws of heaven and earth. How is that possible? I heard that Mistress Xueqing is only at the qi refinement level and hasn't even reached the foundation establishment level. Why is her body more terrifying than ours? There are even Dharma laws of the universe in her body. This is like a legend. Even if we become nascent soul cultivators, we can only control 1 or 2 Dharma laws of the universe. Her body is almost as perfect as the body of a soul formation grand cultivator. That's terrifying. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the other ancestral patriarchs looked at each other with their immortal will and were shocked. They couldn't understand it even if they racked their brains. However, in reality, Zhou Xian's physical body was undergoing a drastic transformation with the help of the 9 spirit qi dragons. It was a complete transformation. She and the baby in her belly skipped the phenomenal success stage and went all the way to the peak in perfected state. Although the stainless phoenix deity body was powerful, it also had a huge flaw. Its swallowing ability was too powerful. It could even be said to be the most powerful devouring body in the universe. For example, a professional boxer needed protein powder and nutritious meals to provide sufficient energy. If he ate porridge every day, he would be malnourished. If there wasn't enough spiritual energy to nourish the body, it would even become a burden to the body. The body would be weak, sickly, and die prematurely. The baby in Immerse womb kept devouring Zhou Xian's qi and blood essence, causing her cultivation to drop. Even the baby could not satisfy her. That was why Zhou Xian fainted time and time again and her cultivation dropped sharply. But this time, Xianxia took half of the spiritual energy contained in Star Destruction and transformed it into 9 huge dragons before injecting it into Qing'er and the child's bodies. It was vast and boundless, and it could be said to be a sea of spiritual energy. It was an extreme improvement to their physiques. The whole process lasted for several hours. At this time the curtain of night fell and the lanterns were lit. The 9 dragons in the sky became smaller and smaller, fainter and fainter. Finally they disappeared completely. The clouds dispersed and the rain dispersed, revealing the bright stars that filled the sky. As for Zhou Xian and the child in her belly, they had reached a state of great satisfaction and consummation. Innate consummation without any flaws or regrets. The baby in the womb opened its eyes wide, sucked its thumb and kept kicking its legs as if it was eager to come out and see this glorious world. I feel that I'm about to give birth. Zhou Xian opened her tired eyes, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Crystal tears rolled down her cheeks as she exerted all her strength. Wah, wah, wah. Accompanied by a loud and powerful cry, the gluttonous daughter had finally arrived. Xianxia had consumed a lot of spiritual energy to activate half of the spiritual energy on Earth, and he was originally very tired. At this moment, her heart relaxed and she immediately collapsed on the chair beside the bed, almost fainting due to exhaustion. But when he heard the cry, Xianxia's spirit was greatly lifted. He jumped up, cut off 13 umbilical cords, carefully removed the placenta, took out his daughter who was dripping wet and carefully wrapped her in swaddling clothes. I, Xianxia, am a father. Xianxia kept kissing his daughter's wet, wrinkled and ugly little face that was covered with fetal hair. He did not mind that it was dirty, and he did not dare to kiss too hard as if his daughter was made of water and he would hurt her. His tears of joy rolled down like a river that had broken the dam. In his previous life he failed and was in dire straits. Before Qing'er died, she did not leave him any children, which made him regret it even before he committed suicide. Since he stepped into the cultivation world, he had been missing and feeling guilty for Qing'er for 10,000 years. He only wanted to make progress bravely and numb himself with cultivation. Although there were many fairies pursuing him, he had never had a Taoist companion, a lover, let alone a child. After 2 lives and many hardships, he finally had a child. How could he not be happy, excited, and tearful? At this moment, his chest was boiling and he only felt great satisfaction, fulfillment, and joy. He was 10,000 times happier than when he became the immortal emperor and became a true god in his previous life. Don't just be happy by yourself, let me see. Qing'er struggled to sit up. Looking at the child in Zhang Tian's arms, she cried and laughed. Madam, you have worked hard. Look, she is as beautiful as you. Zhang Tian's tears kept flowing. He couldn't stop them no matter how hard he tried. He carried the child for her to see and held Qing'er's shoulder. So ugly. She looks more like you. But so strong. Mother's hard work all these years has not been in vain. Qing'er took the child, her eyes hazy with tears. She smiled contentedly and blissfully and kissed the child's forehead deeply. Children are all like this. Grow, and in a few days they will grow and become round. Zhang Tian smiled like a blooming flower. Besides, if she is ugly, then so be it. Our family's dowry is ample. In the whole world, who is richer than her father? Even in the whole universe, in the future, there are not many people who can be richer than my child's father. In fact, Zhang Tian's words were not exaggerated. This girl was the immaculate phoenix maiden immortal body at the great perfection immortal fetus. It was as if she was conceived by a deity in the celestial world. In the future, her cultivation would be very smooth and there would be no obstacles. She also did not need the new flower to awaken her constitution. Such a divine fetus would be considered a heaven-defying constitution that would only appear once in a million years in the immortal sacred grounds of the universe. Zhang Tian, do you want to die? Why didn't you say anything? How is the situation? Do you want your mother to be worried to death? Outside, Zhang Wanqing could not wait any longer. She banged on the door, her voice full of resentment. Mother and child are safe. When Zhang Tian said this, the baby is born. Mother and child are safe. Immediately the living room was filled with laughter. Everyone's hearts were finally at ease. Zhang Wanqing relaxed and sat on the ground, tears rolling down her face. It's finally born. When Zhang Tian walked out, he was beaten by Zhang Wanqing again. Zhang Wanqing twisted his ear and scolded, "Brat, you only care about your own happiness. You didn't think about how long we've been waiting outside. Do you want me to be worried to death? Mom, I was wrong. I won't do it again." Zhang Tian raised his hands and begged for mercy pitifully. The supreme of the four realms was beaten so badly by Mom. This scene made Yi Ziwei, Jiang Bangxia and the other girls cover their mouths and laugh, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Nowadays there were endless forums in various dimensions. In addition, Zhang Tian had defeated many hidden forces and succeeded in the spirit qi revival, so the cultivation civilization was very popular. Zhang Tian's name had spread throughout the world. So what if he's the supreme of the 10,000 realms? I gave birth to him after 10 months of pregnancy. When can't I teach him a lesson? Zhang Wanqing's face was proud. With a wave of her hand, a golden wind blade cut a deep mark on the green jade floor. She was originally a strong woman in the business world. After her son's success in conquering dimensions, her horizons were broadened. Now, the Medicine King group was under the management of Jiang Bangxia, so she focused on cultivation. She had mastered the raising eyebrows sword technique, and her cultivation was close to qi refinement. This wind blade was really awe-inspiring, like a peerless heroine. Don't dance around. Can you take responsibility if you scare my granddaughter? Jiang Zhixing frowned and scolded. He was finally a grandfather and had a precious granddaughter. With his granddaughter as his wife, he was finally in awe. It turned out that Zhao Qianru was supporting Qing'er while Wei Fong was carrying her granddaughter. He's so handsome. One look and I can tell you're my Zhang family's child. Zhang Wanqing's eyes curved into crescents. She immediately surrounded them happily, took her granddaughter and didn't let go again. This made Wei Fong extremely resentful. She said angrily, "Zhang Wanqing, you're too domineering. I haven't hugged her enough." Zhang Wanqing ignored her and looked at Qing'er with concern. "Qing'er, is your body okay? It's better to rest for a while." "Mom, don't worry. I feel pretty good. Much better than before." Zhao Xueqing smiled. Qing'er's cultivation seems to have increased greatly. How high is it? At the side, Jiang Chongging's eyes flashed. He pulled Jiang Tian to the side and whispered, "As high as 3 or 4 levels." Jiang Tian's lips curled into a mysterious smile. He didn't say it explicitly, but his tone was filled with self-satisfaction and pride. Chapter 1293. At this time, Qing'er had already condensed her gold core. Planet Destroyer's qi wasn't just for show. It was boundless and vast. It actually pushed Zhou Xian past the 3 stages of qi refinement, foundation establishment and gold core, stabilizing her at the middle stage of gold core. Considering that she had the pure phoenix immortal physique and had already reached perfection, her current strength might be able to crush at least 4 nascent soul-old monsters. She was only a bit weaker than him. Stinking brat, don't keep me in suspense. Be careful, Qinger will beat you up. Jiang Chonggang rolled his eyes at him. The entire living room was filled with laughter and endless happiness. Jiang Tian was immersed in the ecstasy of becoming a father for the first time. Every day he would play with his child, accompany Qing'e, and look at his precious daughter's cute smile. Jiang Tian only felt that his heart was filled with happiness and was especially satisfied. Outside, the effects of the revival of qi were just beginning to show. All kinds of bizarre scenes appeared one after another, shocking everyone. Everyone felt a kind of feeling of disbelief. In the initial stage of the revival of qi, there were erupting volcanoes and earthquakes. The aftershocks didn't gradually stop until 10 days later. 9 enormous qi dragons crossed the sea and spanned the blue dome of heaven, converging at Sidoni. It brought an even greater shock to people all over the world. In Wuxia, in the depths of Mount Lu, someone saw a white ape hanging on a tree, swallowing the essence of the sun and moon, drinking the wind and drinking dew. In America's Rocky Mountain, a tiger king appeared. It sat cross-legged in meditation, its fur glistening. It fiddled with its phone and watched American dramas. Several days later, it actually spoke the human language, and it was even authentic American English. A month later, more and more strange things happened on Earth. Everyone understood that these things were greatly related to the revival of qi. Animals have become spirits. They've evolved. Kong Teichu said before, and sure enough, it's as he speculated. Scared me to death. A few days ago, a snake appeared in my backyard. That snake actually knew how to talk and courteously asked to borrow something to eat. It ran to my house, opened the fridge and dragged away a chicken. I was scared silly. Did I dare not to lend it? 2 days later, the snake really did send me a pig. Consider it as interest. The pig in your house is definitely not the pig in my backyard. The little pig in my house has grown to the size of a calf and has grown scales. Can fly horizontally and claims that it has the bloodline of an alligator. Now that its bloodline has awakened, it doesn't want to leave and says that it wants to protect its master. Now that he's doing nothing but eating 50 catties of beef a day, I can't afford to feed him. Is there any substitute food? I'm afraid he'll eat me when he's starving. Waiting online, it's urgent. An alligator? It's a magical animal in Strange Tales from a Chinese studio. It also exists in Hindu mythology. Likes to lie there and beat its belly with its tail. It's quite cute. Are you selling it? I can afford to raise it. Ordinary people were posting comments on the online forums. All kinds of mutated situations were popping up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Not only animals but even plants and trees also had spirituality. All the major websites had opened special sections such as Spiritual Aura Recovery, Great Changes in Heaven and Earth, were you attacked by animals and plants today? And the reports were endless. Earth's spirit qi was rapidly recovering, and the world had become completely different. Not only had some people's illnesses disappeared, but many cultivation experts had also emerged. Then the logic of the entire world had become different. The existing political and social order was being shaken and subverted. Violent conflicts were rising rapidly. Every country and government had set up cultivation, martial arts, and supernatural ability schools. The police and the military had set up corresponding departments, offering high salaries and many resources to attract cultivators to join. Cultivation had never been raised to such an unparalleled height as it was today. Only Wuxia, due to its support of Jiang Tian's Spirit Aura Recovery Plan, had adequate emergency plans, and the social order was super stable. Everything was still under the leadership of the party and the government, and it had entered the new era of Spirit Aura Recovery in an orderly manner. Boom! At the peak of Mount Tai, 9 colorful rainbows, which were thousands of meters long, shot straight to the sky like peerless heavenly swords. At that moment, the entire northern part of Wuxia and several provinces could feel a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering pressure. The 9 vast auras were like dragons soaring into the sky, causing the land within 100 miles in the north to tremble. 10,000 meters high in the sky, thunderclouds gathered. Each of them covered a radius of 10 miles, towering like a canopy. What's that? It's so terrifying. Could it be that the devil has risen from the ashes? Quickly go into the bunker. Some citizens walked out of the bunker and looked up at the sky in shock. What devil? These are the most loyal guardians of Wuxia, the 9 Hongmeng elders of the mythological alliance. Don't you watch the news? The officials have already announced in advance that no one is allowed to enter the area within 100 miles of Mount Tai to avoid injury. Next to him, someone took out a tablet and swiped the news for the people around him. Most of the 9 Hongmeng elders were born in Wuxia during the Tang, Song, and Yuan dynasties. Previously, they were suppressed by the immortal trap array, and their golden cores were broken so they could not use their cultivation. Now that the immortal trap array had been broken, and the shackles of heaven and earth had been opened, they had advanced 1,000 miles in a day, like fish leaping over the dragon's gate and turned into dragons. Their cultivation had all condensed their golden cores. After that, the spirit chi recovered and the world changed drastically, and Mount Tai became one of the main places to attract spirit chi. The 9 Hongmeng elders were endlessly nourished, and once again reached the peak stage of the golden core and could be called a perfected immortal. Congratulations, leaders! Wuxia has 9 more top overlords. Wuxia is safe. In the Forbidden City, Xianxia's face was full of joy as he looked at the leaders. After the situation was stabilized, Xianxia was quickly sent to Shenong School for treatment. Even Jiang Tian went to see him and personally treated him and repaired his meridians. Supposedly, Xianxia's dantian was destroyed and his meridians were all broken after Zhou Xian's sneak attack. This was an irreversible injury. Even in the Central Galaxy, where the cultivation civilization was flourishing, not many people could recover from it. However, Jiang Tian only spent a dozen minutes to make a few heaven-mending pills, and repaired Xianxia's dantian. I can't believe there is such a powerful pill in the world. Master can make it in seconds. It should be called the heaven-mending pill, but its effect is amazing. No wonder it's called heaven-mending pill. It's not that exaggerated. That scene shocked even ancestral patriarch True Dragon and the other nascent soul cultivators. They couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a miracle. We don't have to worry about our dantian being destroyed when we fight with Master. Then they were overjoyed. As long as the dantian did not completely dissipate and turn into ashes, even if it was in tatters, it could still be repaired and cultivated from scratch. Xianxia's dantian was repaired, but the true essence inside had mostly dissipated. His power had dropped to the level of chi refinement, but he couldn't do that. However, with the cultivation arts, pills, and unimaginable resources that Jiang Tian had given him, he could recover to the top in 3 to 5 years. Yes, in the era of spirit chi recovery, Wuxia will lead the world and stand at the top of the world. All of this is due to the great fortune that Jiang Taichu has brought. The leaders were even more overjoyed. They were filled with pride and passion, and they were filled with gratitude and admiration towards Jiang Tian. Boom! In Kunlun Mountain, Li Wuji couldn't help but fly up. The vast true essence in his body swept and crashed like raging waves. In the end, it gathered in his dantian and condensed into a fake pill the size of a pigeon egg. Gotcha! Lightning as thick as an arm struck Li Wuji, scorching him on the outside and tender on the inside. When the lightning dissipated, Li Wuji was surprised to find that his fake pill had further solidified into a golden core. I've become a perfected deity? And it's a 5th grade golden core. How is this possible? Li Wuji stood in the void in a daze, feeling the rolling spirit chi within a radius of 100 miles surging into his body like an ocean. But in his dantian, the golden core that was shining brightly and filled with an immortal and indestructible aura was so real. It felt like a heart patient who had a new and healthy heart, providing him with an endless supply of energy. His blood surged like a river and made a series of loud roars. At this moment he no longer doubted that he had really reached the golden core level. Suddenly, boundless ecstasy turned into surging waves and filled his heart. He was so happy that he cried like a child. He had cultivated for hundreds of years and avoided the world so that he could reach the golden core level one day and live forever. He had thought that under the deity trap array and on earth, where spirit chi had dried up, everything was just a dream. He would never be able to change his fate and there was no hope for him to reach the golden core level. But Jiang Tian had broken the cage of heaven and earth and revived the spirit chi on earth, allowing him to reach the limit and be reborn. Kang Taichu is right. He was deep in thought. Flames of war were dancing in his eyes and a fearless spirit slowly rose from the bottom of his heart. I have to fight for the opportunity to develop myself. I've been hiding like a turtle for too long and my neck has degenerated. I don't even have a chance to stick my head out. He straightened his back and a sharp battle intent tore through the sky like a heavenly sword being unsheathed. Everything within 100-mile radius shook. At this moment he seemed to be the proud sect master of the Kunlun sect, the ancestor of the Heaven and Earth Tao sect. No matter how strong the enemy is, so what? Fight, only fight. Only then will we be able to tear apart this cage that imprisons us, and only then will we be able to ascend to the heavens and see a different scenery. At this moment, it seemed that the cowardly Li Wuji had died and was replaced by a new Li Wuji. Chapter 1294. Kang Taichu is really a god. The ancient sages changed the land into rivers and moved the mountains to fill the sea, so what? Kang Taichu dares to ask the sun and the moon to change the world. Thanks to the Taichu Alliance leader, we finally have a chance to make a name for ourselves. At this time Yi Karen and many other disciples of Kunlun were shocked. Their faces were full of reverence and they admired Jiang Tian to the extreme. They had mixed feelings about Jiang Tian because the internal affairs of Kunlun were too complicated. Li Wuji had once used and killed Zhou Xian. Jiang Tian was behind the death of Zhou Xian and the recent cleansing and rectification of Kunlun that killed more than 300 overlords above the immortal state. So, most of them were afraid and hated Jiang Tian, but at this moment, there was only deep admiration left. What was more shocking was, in Tianqing School, Sidu Shao, Yi Tianren and Huang Linger all formed the Golden Core in one day. The world was shocked when the news came out. Originally, on Earth, the third level of the Foundation establishment level was called Sky Immortal. It had always been regarded as the limit of cultivation and no one had been able to break through for thousands of years. Golden Core perfected immortals were just myths and legends. After the Battle of the Gods, they were almost completely extinct. But now, in a short time 14 Golden Core overlords were born. The remarkable effect of the recovery of spirit qi shocked everyone and stirred the world. There's hope for Earth. A dozen Golden Core cultivators are comparable to a third-level dimensional world. The overlords who knew the secret were full of tears and hope. Yes, even if the overlords invade, our spirit qi has recovered. With the Golden Core in Kuelian we can do it. Many people were full of confidence. Not only that, even some ordinary people and young talents had broken through and stepped into the world of cultivation. In the base of the Guardians Alliance in Wuxia, the young warrior Qing Lulu slowly rose to the sky like a dragon. Before leaving for the West Earth dimension, Jiang Tian revisited the old place and went to the Long Formation base. He had once given her a set of cultivation techniques. Coupled with the recovery of the spirit qi, Jiang Tian had also sponsored her with a lot of elixirs. She had reached the soul formation stage in just 1 month, which was unbelievable. In addition, in the northern part of Wuxia, an ordinary factory called Dahlin Stone was suddenly invaded by dozens of mutated brown bears and wild wolves. These wild wolves had already evolved under the nourishment of spiritual energy. They were as tall as calves and their fur was like steel needles. Those brown bears could smash boulders with just a swipe of their claws. They all stood up and stuttered in human language, claiming that they wanted to occupy the city and proclaim themselves kings. The human race should either die or retreat. The guards stationed here fired at them with heavy machine guns but were unable to kill them. They could only barely suppress them. Many workers entered the fortress and fortifications, but the fortifications were about to be torn apart by the wolves and destroyed by the brown bears. The situation was extremely critical. At this moment, a bald uncle who was sweeping the ground jumped out. He tore apart the wild wolves with his bare hands and blew up the brown bears with a punch. His punches and kicks were powerful and irresistible, as if they could shake the world. It only took him a few minutes to kill all the ferocious beasts. He's so strong. Is he a cultivator or a martial artist? Hero. He saved tens of thousands of people. Everyone was stunned. They walked out of the fortifications and looked at the uncle as if he was a hero. They all applauded. I'm not a cultivator or a martial artist. I'm just a cleaner. The uncle's smile was very honest. He was so shy that his face turned red. He quickly covered his face and ran to the dormitory, not daring to come out. He wanted to keep a low profile, but the news still spread. The video at that time was posted on the internet by busybodies. Many media outlets heard the news and came to interview him. Facing the reporters' cameras, he said shyly, "I just used my phone to look at the cultivation techniques published by Tianqing School. After practicing a few times, I felt the qi enter my body and warm my body. I also became a little stronger and swept faster than before. I'm not a hero. I'm just a cleaner." Everyone was shocked. For a sanitation worker with no foundation to have such strength after cultivating for only a month, it was like a myth. The cultivation techniques published by Tianqing School are very effective. Just like what Kong Teichu said, every mortal can become stronger and become a peerless hero. Many people who wanted to cultivate and become stronger looked up to him as a role model. He had many fans on the internet and became a big internet celebrity. Because he was a cleaner and had a bald head, he was called the sweeping monk of the Great Forest Factory. The great hermit lives in the factory, I'm just a cleaner, and other words became popular and popular. Later the government was alarmed. The League of Defenders sent Chao Jianjiao and the others to conduct a strict assessment. They found that his cultivation had reached the middle stage of qi refinement, which was a level higher than the martial arts grandmasters. He was immediately specially recruited to the League of Defenders and rose to the top in one step. However, that was only the beginning. After that, more and more ordinary people such as white-collar workers, farmers and peddlers, stepped onto the path of cultivation and gradually became stronger. Tens of thousands of people became cultivators and powerhouses, and were highly regarded by the government. A great era of cultivation with dragons and snakes rising from the ground and bright stars slowly opened. A cultivation planet that would shake the world in the future finally emitted its first faint ray of light in the vast universe. A few months later, it was already the beginning of 2014. The sun was shining. On the sunny beach of Sidoni's Bibu Bay, the sun was bright and beautiful. Seagulls soared and let out pleasant chirps. The tropical scenery was pleasant. In just a few years, the shadow of the Sopa War had disappeared. The Bibu Bay, which was once a heavily polluted place, had become a tourist attraction. It was far more popular than the Maldives and had become the favorite place for internet celebrities to check in. Even the great artists, famous models and top dignitaries of France were proud to own a small villa in the Bibu Bay. They didn't deliberately set aside private beaches to keep people thousands of miles away. They pretended to be reserved. That was something only the stinky rich and fake aristocrats would do. In fact, Jiang Tian liked to have fun with the people. He disguised himself as an ordinary person and casually lay down on a deck chair under a few palm trees with branches and leaves swaying in the wind with Zhou Xian. He also held his little daughter, Jiang Beibei, in his arms. 3 meters away there were running children and tourists from all over the world. At this time, Jiang Tian had short hair and was wearing sunglasses. He had blue stubble, sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He was wearing casual beach pants and a pair of cold slippers, revealing his snow-white, sparkling and powerful body that was like a jade leopard. He held Jiang Beibei, who was like a pink porcelain doll, in his arms. His stubble gently pricked his daughter's little face, causing the little girl to let out a bell-like laughter. Her little hand was scratching Jiang Tian's chin. "Beibei, you are daddy's precious baby, Dan." Jiang Tian laughed very happily. His eyes overflowed with tenderness that couldn't be dissolved, making Zhou Xian a little jealous. Being ruthless didn't mean being a true hero. How could a man not be compassionate? Jiang Tian's sharpness was hidden, and his murderous aura was restrained. He had the magnificent aura of a heavy sword without a sharp edge. At this time he was deeply affectionate and gave people a very warm feeling. In the eyes of the crowd, he was clearly a middle-aged charming uncle who was good-looking and good-looking. Many young ladies and noblewomen around him cast sidelong glances at him with misty eyes. His daughter was already 100 days old. With the nourishment of the 9 dragons' spiritual energy, Zhou Xian had recovered well. Her skin was white and rosy. Even a 16-year-old girl paled in comparison. The curves of her body were exquisite. She was less immature and more mature and seductive. She was so beautiful that she could steal people's souls. Reporting to the Alliance Master, since the recovery of spiritual energy, A total of 520 people in Wuxia have broken through to the foundation establishment stage. More than 200 of them have surpassed the fairy immortal realm, and 100,000 of them are expected to reach the body and qi refinement stage. Preliminary examination shows that more than 500,000 of them have the talent for cultivation. There may be more in the future. Among them, 98 of the most talented people have been given Guizhong Cauldron Heavenly Pills according to the Alliance Master's instructions. There are still more than 3,000 pills left. Behind Jiang Tian, Li Wuji was like a loyal servant. His face was full of smiles as he reported respectfully. Distribute them. Distribute them all. Distribute them if they have the talent. Why do I need the most talented people? Jiang Tian's face was full of affection. He was focused on playing with his daughter and said casually, "What? Distribute them all?" Li Wuji was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. He couldn't believe it and his voice was trembling. Chapter 1295. He had carefully studied the Guizhong Cauldron pill. Its effect was too good. It could greatly increase the success rate of every breakthrough in the qi refining and foundation establishment stages. Could be said to be priceless. If a pill was put on the market, it would probably be worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions. The point was that it was priceless. This pill was the only one of its kind in Tianqing school. No other organization or force had developed it. Give them all out. Kong Teichi, you really think pills are jelly beans? Deputy Leader, our Tianqing school has swept through 3 dimensions. Do you know how many of these pills we have? Next to him, Xin Mange, who was wearing a bikini, was lying on a recliner, revealing her slender and beautiful legs. She was drinking coconut juice and smiling. Next to her, Sasaki Haisha Huang Linger Qinyang Jiang Bangxia, and other young disciples of Tianqing school who liked to play, as well as Jiang Tian's relatives and friends, were chatting and laughing. The atmosphere was very warm and harmonious. The recovery of spirit qi and the establishment of the Global Mythology Alliance were successful. Qing'er and her daughter were safe. Many disciples had performed well. Of course, they also risked their lives. Many people were injured. Jiang Tian was not the kind of person who was inflexible. He liked the lively life. He gave his disciples a vacation to bask in the sun and eat delicious food. But people like Xinlong and Takong Yi Tianren Situ Shao, and even Zhao Yunkun had heavy hearts and were not interested in having fun. Some of them were cultivating in seclusion, some were exploring ancient places, and some were chatting with each other. They didn't dare to slack off in the slightest when it came to cultivation. Then we'll listen to the leader's orders. When Li Wuji heard this, he could only nod as a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. After Li Wuji left, Zhao Xueqing smiled and said, "Honey, even Li Wuji has reached the elixir stage. You are still at the fake elixir stage. Aren't you worried?" Jiang Tian laughed and raised his daughter up high. He said proudly, "My cultivation is indeed at the fake core stage, but I have 6 divine grade fake cores. Even if 300 golden core stage cultivators like Li Wuji attack me together, I can still kill them with a raise of my hand." Zhao Xueqing looked at Jiang Tian dotingly, then smiled and said, "Recently, your cultivation has been neglected for a long time." "It's only been a few months." Jiang Tian stayed with his daughter, but he couldn't get enough of her. He was filled with boundless satisfaction and joy. His entire heart was on her. Cultivation and whatnot were just too boring. Qia, Kanglin, and other dimensional worlds that are relatively close to Earth can invade at any time. Zhao Xueqing frowned and said worriedly, "That's right. The dimensional worlds might have teleportation arrays that lead directly to Earth. We don't even know where some teleportation arrays are. My idea is to take down all the 4th-level dimensional worlds and form a barrier to protect Earth." "My idea is the same as yours," Jiang Tian praised. "Once a war breaks out on Earth, even if there are enough experts on Earth, it will still cause great damage to Earth. Taking down some low-level dimensional worlds is equivalent to cutting off the passage from the ruins of immortality to Earth. Even if they can use secret techniques to enter Earth, their numbers will only be high and controlled within a certain range." Jiang Tian's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice, "As for me, I can use the large-scale teleportation array at Hangu Pass to reach the ruins of immortality. Then I can launch an all-out attack from the enemy's rear and kill them in one blow. That's the right idea." Zhao Xueqing revealed a look of worry and said, However, according to the True Dragon Patriarch and the others, the Ruins Emperor's cultivation might have reached the soul formation realm. Even if you have reached the golden core stage, I'm afraid you don't have 100% chance of winning. Of course. Zhang Tian nodded and said seriously, cultivation is strict. Qi refinement, foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, soul formation, void returning, Tao reunion and finally tribulation. Every time you cross a major level, it's a metamorphosis and sublimation of life. It's like a natural chasm. Usually only those who are extremely talented or have special physiques can kill opponents of a higher level. However, it's usually done by crossing a major level. For example, a foundation establishment cultivator killing an early-stage golden core cultivator or a late-stage nascent soul cultivator killing an early-stage soul formation cultivator. However, it's almost impossible for a golden core cultivator to win against a soul formation cultivator. Even if I have a divine-grade golden core, I can't easily kill a soul formation cultivator like the Ruins Emperor. The reason was simple. A golden core cultivator was like the engine of a sports car with the best performance, but it was just a sports car. Even if the engine was embedded with diamonds and gold, it couldn't exceed the speed of a supersonic fighter. So you should hurry up and form a chaotic golden core. Since you've chosen not to abandon this world, you have to fight until the end, Zhao Xueqing said gently. If Zhang Tian was a cold-hearted person, he wouldn't have tried to revive the spirit qi on Earth. He could have completely monopolized the spirit qi of planet extermination and sublimate it to the extreme, which would be enough to push Zhang Tian to the nascent soul level or even the soul formation level. He could then break through the sky and enter the ruins of deity, then enter the central galaxy through the teleport arrays there. But since Zhang Tian had made such a choice, it meant that Zhang Tian loved this land deeply and he would never stop fighting for it. But I'll be in seclusion for at least a year. Zhang Tian looked a bit hesitant. He couldn't bear to part with his daughter. Zhang Tian and the remnants of the advance troop under Tunguska kept in touch with Baigu. The Fiend Lake had become their territory at the moment. Even though they were tainted by Fiend Qi, they had always maintained a pure heart and were willing to fight to protect the civilization on Earth and mankind. However, they didn't want to come out, fearing that the Fiend Qi they carried would infect the mortal world, so they had been hiding deep inside the Fiend Lake. These days, Ying Ziyu and the others went to planet extermination again and found that the spirit qi of planet extermination was only 1/10 of what it used to be. The vacuum around it had been greatly reduced, but it was still a kilometer away. The artificial placenta was still there and Zhang Tian could still use it. Planet extermination was a deity artifact Dharma treasure, which was even more powerful than the darkest stone tablet, the sky extinguishing sword and the Dinghai pearl. The 9 dragons guiding array that Zhang Tian had made was limited by the materials used, so it could only be considered a true artifact array. It could easily destroy the artifact spirit and seize the spirit qi, but it wasn't enough to destroy planet extermination. So, there should still be enough spirit qi in planet extermination to push Zhang Tian to the golden core level. Going underground for a year wasn't a big deal in the past, but Zhang Tian had something on his mind. If he couldn't see his daughter, Zhang Tian would feel like a year. Master, you only need a month. Suddenly, 3 rays of golden light shot through the sky. It was Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon with Situ Shao and the Wolf King. What do you mean? Zhang Tian frowned and suddenly realized something. He slapped his thigh and laughed. You've dug out the 1-day imprisonment array of the Sword Tomb? Ah, you're really something, True Dragon. That's right. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon held an array plate the size of a wash basin and said with a smile, "This array isn't destroyed. This spell formation hasn't been destroyed. It's just that it has run out of energy crystals. Presumably, as long as it is repaired a little and opened with crystal stones, it will be usable." It turned out that Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon had been careful after learning that Zhang Tian, Situ Shao and the Wolf King had been trapped by the 1-day imprisonment array. He speculated that the magic treasure might not have been destroyed yet. He immediately brought Situ Shao and the Wolf King to the Sword Tomb Island. Then he asked the Russian military to send out 10,000 people to search for the disc. They used modern technology and spiritual sense to scan the area. After dozens of days of hard work, they finally dug out the disc array. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon was a nascent soul cultivator who had lived for a few thousand years. He immediately knew that the array plate could still be used and brought it back. Thank you, True Dragon. Zhang Tian took the array plate. You're welcome. It was the first time that he had been praised by Zhang Tian. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon bowed and said, It's my responsibility to share your burden, Master. This array plate is not bad. It's made of time crystals and the refining method is quite unique. Zhang Tian rubbed it and carefully sized it up. The array plate was carved with flowers, birds, insects, fish and animals. The lines were abstract and simple, giving it a strange sense of beauty. It was just a decoration. The key was the pattern. The pattern was very delicate and complicated. It looked like a circuit board, but it was also emitting an ancient and obscure aura. This was a type of time acceleration array disk. It could accelerate time within a certain range, catalyze and evolve. The refining level was very high. Zhang Tian speculated that the array plate was probably a relic from the ancient times. It might have come from an extraterrestrial civilization. Also, the extraterrestrial civilization that had made the array plate must have been very advanced and could control time. It was probably as advanced as the Star Glory Federation. Even Zhang Tian couldn't make such an array plate with his current cultivation. After all, time and space were the most mysterious forces. Naturally, they were also the most difficult forces for cultivators to control. Some of the runes on the array plate could only be carved by Zhang Tian after he reached the divinity transformation stage. More importantly, time crystals were extremely rare in the universe. Even an entire galaxy might not be able to produce one. It could be called a divine material. You only need to use extreme energy crystals as the raw material to start it up and it can be used repeatedly. Zhang Tian checked it and was very happy. He gave the array plate to Sasaki Kaisha and said, Give it to Zhang Qinzhen. Test and inspect it. Equip it with a suitable amount of extreme energy crystals. Yes. Sasaki Kaisha carefully took the disc and left with the order. In order to prepare for his seclusion apart from the time array plate, Zhang Tian also had to repair the damaged reactor of the drill. However, these were all left to Zhang Qinzhen and the refining hall. In addition, Zhang Tian asked Shin Mange and the rest to refine some backup pills. All he needed was some guidance. This was the advantage of a large sect. There were a lot of talents. Zhang Tian didn't have to do everything himself, which saved him a lot of time. Zhang Tian, on the other hand, didn't leave the sect at all. Other than spending time with his wife and children, he focused on his cultivation. He tried to finish everything in one go. He refined many fake cores again and laid a solid foundation for the chaotic golden core. On this day, 2 uninvited guests came to visit. They were Zhang Tian's fourth aunt, Xianxia, and his cousin, Zhang Yilin. Chapter 1296. Cultivators were also human beings. Zhang Tian and his wife didn't put on airs when their relatives came to visit. They welcomed them with the child in their arms. Cousin! Zhang Yilin shouted and took Zhang Beibei over. She kissed her forehead and said with a smile, You're so cute. You're much prettier than my brother. It seems that you've inherited your mother's good genes. The woman was wearing a beige business suit and 8-centimeter high heels, which made her figure even taller and more curvy. Her hair was coiled on top of her head, revealing her slender white neck. She was dressed like a strong woman in the city. Seeing her, Zhang Tian felt as if he had been separated from her for a lifetime. He still remembered that in order to save his life, she trembled like a little white rabbit under the abuse of Qin Zifan, the young master of Yanjin. Now she was completely smart and capable and could stand on her own. Yilin, you've made a lot of money recently. You've become a rich woman. Zhang Tian showed a touch of relief and said with a smile. Zhang Tian was now indifferent to worldly wealth. In the process of the recovery of spirit qi, he supported and assisted Wuxia to establish refugee camps and had donated trillions of dollars. The value of the elixirs he gave to Wuxia's martial arts world was even more incalculable. At present, except for the Medicine King group, Zhang Tian had given away almost all the worldly businesses he controlled. Zhang Tian originally had a lot of shares in Watch My Live, but Zhang Tian gave them all to Zhang Yilin. Watch My Live had acquired many radio stations, film and television companies and short video companies. It had become the largest media company in the world with a market value of hundreds of billions of dollars. Even Wuxia's 2 horses were dwarfed and didn't dare to act rashly. Especially not long ago when Jiang Tian was suppressing the gods of the other races and the mystic realm experts, he got the exclusive right to watch my livestream. He even opened a gambling house and participated in many other activities. He was even more outstanding and had become a giant enterprise. Haha, I can't compare with cousin. When you go to the ruins of immortality to fight, you can also give me the right to broadcast live. Zhang Yilin giggled as she played with the child. Haha, this is possible. Jiang Tian laughed and didn't take it to heart. Jiang Tian noticed that Xianxia was sitting there in a daze. She had a worried look on her face and her eyes were red. It seemed like she had just cried. Auntie Yilin is rich now. Fourth uncle is now the president of the Academy of Sciences in Sidoni and in charge of the refining hall of Tianqing School. Even the American Minister of Defense has to be respectful to him. Why do you still look so bitter? Xianxia smiled stiffly. Jiang Tian, I know that you're the master of stars, the savior of the universe. You've done a lot of things that involve aliens. I shouldn't be bothering you with such trivial matters, but I just can't help it. Xianxia's tone was filled with humility. We're all family. If you say that, we'll be estranged. Jiang Tian handed over the tea and said calmly, back then when the Jiang family was in trouble, only fourth uncle helped me. I will never forget this kindness. If you have something to say, just say it. Xianxia hurriedly got up and took the tea with trembling hands. She took a sip of tea but tears flowed down her cheeks. She lowered her head and choked. Your fourth uncle has a mistress. Auntie, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. Jiang Tian was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and said, that's right. Many successful men like to have a mistress outside but a mistress at home. But I know fourth uncle. He's not that kind of person. Fourth uncle Zhang Qinzhen was originally a top student and a research maniac. His interest in physics and weapon research far exceeded that of women. In particular, Sidoni had developed a series of weapons and magical equipment such as the Kualian, the battle armor, the mechanical exoskeleton, the puppet robot, and so on. It was as if he had been thrown into a honeypot. He was immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. He was intoxicated. It could be said that even if a supermodel was stripped naked and thrown in front of him, he might not even take a second look. In his eyes, formulas, theorems, data, and blueprints were much more interesting and sexy than women. Brother, I also think that my mother is going through menopause. She's paranoid and depressed. Why don't you give her a few pills to eat? Zhang Yilin chimed in. No. It's true. Xianxia took out a scroll from her bag and waved her hands in the air. She shouted hysterically, there was one time when I woke up in the middle of the night, but he wasn't by my side. I found him alone in the living room, hugging this woman's portrait with tears streaming down his face. He kept calling her wife, and said that he would find her as soon as possible. I asked him who this woman was, but he refused to tell me. But I heard him clearly. He called this bitch, wife. Furthermore, he hasn't touched me for half a year. How can I accuse him? There must be someone out there. Jiang Tian, I've been with him for so many years. He's an ungrateful wretch. When I was with him, he had nothing. You have to do something about this. No one can do anything about it except you. Even the old man can't do anything about it. If you don't do anything about it, I'll die in front of you. Sasaki Aisha's face turned cold when she saw Jiang Tian frown. She took a step forward and scolded, this is Tianqing School. You're facing the sect leader of Taichu Alliance, the sect leader of Taichu Alliance. What's the point of yelling like that? Sasaki Aisha's cultivation was already at the foundation establishment stage. She was even more aloof than before. She carried a long sword on her back at all times. Her aura was cold and intimidating, just like an ancient heroine. At this moment, her murderous aura surged like a peerless heavenly sword being unsheathed, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet. Xianxia was so frightened that she plopped down on the sofa, not daring to make any noise. She could only weep silently. Jiang Tian waved his hand and the scroll fell into his hand. His expression changed when he read it. Even Zhao Xueqing and Sasaki Aisha were attracted to it. The woman in the portrait was indescribably beautiful. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens. Her aura was ethereal and ethereal. She was dressed in a purple palace dress that fluttered in the wind. She was many times more beautiful than Sasaki and Zhang Yilin. Sasaki believed that such a woman did not exist in the real world. Zhao Xueqing also took a few glances at the portrait. If this woman really existed, even if fourth uncle was a bookworm, he would still be attracted to her. Of course, under such circumstances she could not say that out loud. From what I can see, this woman doesn't even exist. Zhang Tian pondered for a moment, then smiled faintly. This portrait is drawn with fine brushwork. Who would still use that in these days? Wouldn't it be better to just take a picture? Besides, with his current status, he can just divorce you if he wants to dump you. Who can stop him? Even if he doesn't want to divorce you and wants to find this woman with his current status and power, can't he get what he wants? Why would he want to find her as soon as possible? Although Zhang Tian's words were cruel, they were also true. Xianxia was dumbfounded and speechless. In the end, she asked angrily, then why did he call this woman his wife? How could I have misunderstood him? Zhang Tian handed the scroll back, shook his head and sighed. The brain of a scientist is different from ours. I suspect that he's so obsessed with his research that he's suffering from severe hallucinations. Sigh, it's my fault for giving him too many tasks. Is he suffering from schizophrenia? That's right. He used to be crazy too. Zhang Tian, what should we do? You have to save him. Xianxia panicked. She was so anxious that she wanted to kneel down before Zhang Tian. It's fine. I'll prescribe some pills. You can get them from Xin Mange and give them to him. Zhang Tian picked up a piece of paper and a pen, then handed it to Xianxia and gave her some instructions. After much difficulty, Xianxia and Zhang Yilin were sent away. Zhao Xueqing smiled and asked, Zhang Tian, the pills you've prescribed are all for strengthening the body and replenishing ethereal energy. They're completely useless to the brain and consciousness. Zhang Tian shook his head gently. 2 rays of light flashed in his eyes as he said, there's something going on with Zhang Qinzhen. What? Is he really having an affair? Zhao Xueqing could not believe it. To be exact, his name is not Zhang Qinzhen at all. Or rather, he used to be Zhang Qinzhen, but he's not Zhang Qinzhen anymore. Zhang Tian sighed and said, his name should be the King of Equipment Refinery, Zhou Feng. Zhao Xueqing's face turned pale. Sasaki Haisha's delicate body trembled violently. Her expression changed drastically, as if she had seen a demon. Chapter 1297. What? Can't be a coincidence, can it? Qing'er said with shock in her eyes. She knew that Zhang Tian had obtained information about Zhou Feng from Ashoka, so she immediately understood what Zhang Tian meant. Zhou Feng's divine soul had been sleeping in Zhang Qing'an's mind. Originally, this kind of memory was like a subconscious that could inspire Zhang Qinzhen to combine refining with modern technology without causing any adverse reactions. But now, because his subconscious was gradually awakening, Zhang Qing'an's mind already had the memories and consciousness of 2 people. The memories of Zhou Feng's previous life were even more dominant. So he started to miss his family in his previous life and started to dislike his current wife and child. They were no longer the pure Zhang Qinzhen. This is 1 in 10,000. But it did happen. Zhang Tian smiled bitterly. Think about it. This world has been possessed and it has the memory of refining. Who else can create advanced magical artifacts? Zhang Tian frowned and shook his head. I don't know whether this is a blessing or a curse. There are too many variables. Leader, he controls the Kuelian. Sasaki Haisha's eyes flashed coldly as he exclaimed. Zhang Tian nodded slowly and his face gradually became gloomy. Fortresses are always breached from the inside. He controls the Kuelian system and his refining ability is no less than mine. I think I should sign a divine soul contract with him. Right now, the Myth Alliance is as solid as an iron plate. The only variable is Zhou Feng. Signing a divine soul contract will damage one's mind greatly. We should be careful. Zhao Xueqing frowned and then said gently. Besides, according to you, Zhou Feng was originally a warrior of justice. He didn't hesitate to leave his family and homeland and go through all kinds of hardships to conquer the stars. And Earth is also under your leadership to fight against the tyranny of the ruins of immortality. Both sides are on the side of justice. I think he should be on our side. I don't think he'll side with the ruins of immortality at all, let alone destroy the cultivation civilization of Earth and the spirit chi recovery plan. Zhang Tian didn't say anything but gently shook his head. Between civilizations there were no eternal friends. There was no such thing as justice or evil. Everything was for the sake of survival and benefits. Seeing that, Zhao Xueqing continued. Without the highly developed cultivation civilization on Earth, it would have been impossible for him to cross the void and return to his hometown, the Star Glory Federation. Or rather, his goal is exactly the same as yours. Only by defeating the ruins of deities can there be hope to repair and control the ancient path of space, to ensure the prosperity of the cultivation civilization on Earth, and to reach the central galaxy and return to his homeland. Zhou Xian knew that Jiang Tian had seen too much treachery, betrayal, and deception in his 10,000 years of cultivation in his previous life. Therefore he was very suspicious in his bones. Otherwise he would not have signed a soul contract with others so easily and completely controlled them. She looked at Jiang Tian with a gentle gaze and held Jiang Tian's big hand with her soft little hand. "Hubby, you're too nervous. Don't treat everyone as an imaginary enemy. You'll be too tired if you do." Jiang Tian found Zhou Xian's last analysis reasonable. The gloominess on Jiang Tian's face gradually disappeared, replaced by a smile. He said, "You're right, my wife. I've been worrying for nothing. However, I still need to talk to him. Fu Feng has his own life. However, my fourth uncle has his own life and his own family too. If he can't completely shatter and suppress my fourth uncle's memories, it will be tantamount to killing my fourth uncle." "Okay." Jiang Tian nodded. Jiang Tian soon arrived at the Sidoni Academy of Sciences and found Zhang Qinzhen. "Jiangtian, you're here. The mountain-crushing drill has been repaired." Zhang Qinzhen was modifying and repairing the rune array of the time rune array under the microscope with a carving knife. Next to him, the mountain-crushing drill had been repaired. Many of the cracks had disappeared as if it had been reborn. Jiang Tian scanned it with his divine sense and said with a smile, "This is a spiritual-level magical item. You've repaired it so quickly." Jiang Tian was surprised. He said, "You changed the reactor. Did you do it yourself?" "Yes." Zhang Qinzhen smiled faintly. Their original crystals weren't of a very high level. They couldn't even be considered extreme flame crystals. However, I'm using explosive crystals. "Amazing." Jiang Tian praised sincerely. The explosive crystal contains powerful and violent energy, even more than the extreme flame crystals. It is one of the most terrifying ores in the universe. When used on the Kuelian, its power is even greater than that of a nuclear weapon. It is because the extreme flame crystals require extremely tough rare metals to make the reactor, and the reactor walls and supporting components have to be constantly thickened. Therefore, the Kuelian has always been using large and medium-sized magical items. What you're doing now is like putting a nuclear warhead into a pistol to achieve controllable nuclear fusion. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes and stared at Zhang Qinzhen. He said meaningfully, "Fourth uncle, your refining skills have improved by leaps and bounds. Even I have to admit defeat now." Zhang Qinzhen's eyes lit up. He sighed and said, "Jiang Tian, you should have noticed that the ancient memory in my mind is gradually awakening. I can't even tell whether I am Zhang Qinzhen or Zhu Feng. You're quite frank." Jiang Tian's face was indifferent. He clasped his hands behind his back and asked calmly, "What do you plan to do? If I want to erase Zhang Qinzhen's memory now, will you kill me?" Zhang Qinzhen was different from usual. There was a bit of iron-blooded decisiveness in him. This kind of aura could only be found in the experts who had killed a lot. It was completely different from his scholarly temperament. "Of course." Jiang Tian nodded. His eyes were indifferent as he said, "The reason why I, Jiang Tian, can dominate the world and suppress the major countries, and why Tianqing School can successfully resist the invasion of West Earth, is because of you. But those are two different things. My fourth uncle has also helped me a lot. Besides, we are connected by blood. If you completely take over his body, it's no exaggeration to say that you've killed him." Jiang Tian's tone was neither fast nor slow, as if he was talking about something that couldn't be more normal. "You know how I, Jiang Tian, do things. What happens to those who hurt my family and friends? I understand now." Zhang Qinzhen's face was bitter as he sighed. "In fact, I don't really want to kill Zhang Qinzhen. I don't want to harm any innocent people. But I only remember that I had no choice back then. My death is not regrettable, but I came here with an important mission, a mission that is more important than my life." "But you can't remember what happened on Earth?" Jiang Tian asked. Jiang Tian was also very curious about the true identity of the white-robed envoy. Who exactly was he? Why did he have such a familiar feeling? I can't remember. Zhang Qinzhen pulled his hair in pain and shook his head. Because my enemy was also capable of soul attacks at that time. My soul was already incomplete after being beaten by him in the first place. Also, after drifting for days like rootless duckweed, my soul and my memories were already riddled with holes. Don't resist. Let me check. Jiang Tian sent out a tiny bit of the soul devourer's divine sense, which drilled into Zhang Qinyan's head like a strand of hair. Indeed. This memory is fragmented. Many parts are blurry and tattered. After a long time, Jiang Tian withdrew the soul devourer's divine sense and sighed. In fact, even if I let a part of your soul devour Zhang Qinyan's consciousness, you can't do it. Zhuofeng's soul can only exist as a subconscious and secondary soul, only fragments of memories. Right now you are actually still Zhang Qinzhen. It's just that this memory of Zhuofeng's is manifesting. You are resonating with it and are deeply moved. You can't even tell who you are. But your main soul is still Zhang Qinzhen. Is that really the case? But I keep feeling that I'm Zhuofeng. Zhang Qinzhen said in confusion. You have two choices now. Jiang Tian pondered for a while and did not answer directly. One is to find a suitable body for Zhuofeng's soul to possess. The second is to further suppress Zhuofeng's soul into a subconscious state. You have a suitable body. Zhang Qinzhen was flabbergasted. Of course. Jiang Tian did not explain. Back then he had promised the artifact spirit of the map of the immortal ruins to help him find a suitable body, and the artifact spirit had helped Jiang Tian activate the teleportation array at Hanggu Pass. Jiang Tian had not forgotten this. And in the longevity sect of West Earth, Ming Rui and the others had collected countless suitable bodies. The souls of these bodies had already been shattered and could not be restored. But they had been preserved with secret techniques and had not lost their vitality. Many of them still had a certain level of cultivation. I remember that cultivators can only possess bodies 3 times in their lifetime. Once it exceeds 3 times, even the most powerful cultivator's divine soul will collapse. Zhang Qinzhen asked. Indeed. Unless it's a special divine soul, there's no chance of survival, Jiang Tian said truthfully. The Zhuofeng's divine soul in my mind is already broken. Zhang Qinzhen hesitated for a moment, then shook his head bitterly. I've already possessed a body once. I'm afraid that I won't be able to take it a second time and will dissipate into nothingness. I don't dare to take this risk. You don't have to worry about that. Jiang Tian took out a pill and said. Do you know what this pill is? It's called the Soul Recovery Pill. It can repair a broken soul. If you take it, I can guarantee that you won't fail the next time you possess a body. Your soul will even be stronger. Did you snatch the Soul Recovery Pill from West Earth? No, did you make it yourself? Zhang Qinzhen was shocked and his voice trembled. He couldn't believe it. With Zhuofeng's memories, he certainly knew that this pill was extremely rare in the universe. It was a heaven-defying item and extremely difficult to make. Even the so-called Elixir Kings, Elixir Supremes and Elixir Emperors knew the recipe, but they were often helpless. How is it? Jiang Tian asked. I don't want to lose Zhuofeng's memories. I don't want to be separated from this soul. Zhang Qinzhen struggled and remained silent for a long time. Finally, his eyes flashed. To be exact, I'm too fascinated by those magical refining methods. Those runes are too beautiful and profound. His voice was firm. Jiang Tian, help me suppress Zhuofeng's divine soul to the level of consciousness. Chapter 1298. Jiang Tian nodded with a faint smile on his face. Then he tapped his forehead with his right middle finger. A black soul devourer's immortal will burst out and formed a deity word, suppress. It wasn't big, but it was extremely complicated and carried a lot of restrictive spells. It went into Zhang Qinyan's mind. The moment the deity word seal entered his mind, Zhang Qinyan's eyes immediately became clear and rational. His pupils contracted and there was sharpness in them. That iron-blooded murderous aura that did not match his status and experience slowly receded, and he once again became refined and gentle. Although my suppression word seal is powerful, it's still in your body. It depends on your powerful soul energy. Jiang Tian said. You can read his books about artifact making, but don't read his life experience. Don't be bewitched by Zhuofeng's soul. Then there won't be any problems. Remember, you're Zhang Qinzhen, a descendant of the Yan Huang country and a member of Earth. You have to fight for Earth. I understand, Jiang Tian. Zhang Qinzhen nodded with deep gratitude in his eyes. There won't be any problems with fourth uncle. After discussing some more issues, Jiang Tian walked out of the Sidoni Academy of Sciences. He looked at the sky and his eyes glittered. Zhou Feng should have been a nascent soul cultivator when he died. His nascent soul had been shattered and his energy had been separated. He had lost all his power, but his divine soul hadn't been completely shattered and his memory was still there. But then his divine soul was extremely weak and he hadn't even succeeded in possessing Zhang Qingyan's body. Jiang Tian had used the deity word seal to suppress him. A few days later, the time acceleration array was finally completed. I'll call it the time array. Jiang Tian nodded with satisfaction after a series of experiments and confirmed that it could indeed accelerate the passage of time 10 times. Then Jiang Tian took Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the others to the Tunguska Demon Lake and the land of planet extermination to enter the Golden Core level. Sidoni San Juan International Airport, Sidoni Air Force One. All the powerful cultivators above the third level of the Foundation Establishment realm in Tianqing School, including Qin Yang and Arthur, were gathered there. They stood with their hands clasped behind their backs, looking extremely respectful. At the front of the crowd were Qing'er, Zhang Wanqing, Jiang Chongqing and other family members. Huang Linger's tears rolled down. Sasaki Haisha, Shin Mange and the other female disciples' eyes were red. Zhang Wanqing was also reluctant, but she still showed an encouraging smile. Jiang Tian, this is a dangerous trip. You must be extremely careful. Jiang Chongqing instructed seriously. Thousands of kilometers underground, high temperature, high pressure, unknown creatures. Qing'er was a righteous person. She had always advocated that Jiang Tian enter closed-door meditation to break through to the Jindan stage as soon as possible. However, when it came to the point where they had to part, her face was full of worry and reluctance. Don't worry, I'm already familiar with the underground. Moreover, I have a group of allies to help me. I can return safely. Jiang Tian replied with a smile. Besides, we have the time acceleration array which will greatly shorten the time. It will only take half an hour to sneak into the place where planet destruction is. The closed-door meditation will only take a month. It won't take too long. In the end, Jiang Tian hugged his mother and Qing'er and kissed his daughter. Under Qing'er's tender gaze, he stepped onto Air Force One with the ancestral patriarch of the True Dragon sect and went straight to Tunguska. This time I must form a supreme chaotic golden core as the support for me to conquer the other dimensions. Looking at his family and friends outside the window, Jiang Tian's eyes were filled with determination. More than 10 hours later, Sidoni's Air Force One arrived above the Tunguska Fiend Lake. Peace had been restored there, but there were still many troops stationed there. There were at least 10,000 of them. There were also memorials and squares built by the lake for tourists to visit. There was a huge monument in the square, and beside it was a huge bronze statue of Jiang Tian that was over 100 meters tall. Many of Jiang Tian's miracles were engraved on it to commemorate and thank Jiang Tian for killing the demon race, helping Russia to rebuild its government and regaining its sovereignty. The leader of the Taichu alliance is here. The new emperor of Russia and the commander of the three armies had already led dozens of top politicians and generals to the square next to the Tunguska Fiend Lake. Behind them stood the honor guards of the three armies. With their heads held high and their chests puffed out, they walked over in a neat and orderly manner, waiting for Jiang Tianjian. The leader of the Taichu alliance had come to cultivate in seclusion. This was a grand occasion for Russia. The entire country was celebrating and it was comparable to National Day. When Jiang Tian walked out of the plane, salute. All the politicians and officers, including the new emperor, saluted Jiang Tian with a serious face and respectful eyes. The atmosphere was solemn. Don't do that. I don't like it. Go away. Jiang Tian frowned. Yes, leader of the Taichu alliance. The emperor of Russia quickly bowed and waved his hand. Those officials wanted to report to Jiang Tian, but they couldn't help but look at each other, but they didn't dare to disobey. They could only follow the emperor of Russia and leave with the guards of honor. In the end, only the Wolf King Alexander and a group of superpowers from the Winter Soldiers were left to guard the place. But this was just a formality. On the entire Earth, Jiang Tian was already invincible, the entire world submitting to him. Who could attack the Earth's core? Who could injure him? Besides, if anything happened to Zhang Tian during his seclusion, these winter soldiers wouldn't be able to deal with it. Swish. Zhang Tian flicked his finger and summoned the mountain-crushing drill, which floated above the Tunguska Fiend Lake. Then he took out the myriad stone cauldron and hid the time array disc inside. Master is amazing. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon's eyes lit up and he suddenly understood. The time array disc could accelerate time by 10 times, so it could also increase the speed of the mountain-crushing drill by 10 times. The other 3 patriarchs were also amazed. The 4 of them stepped into the cabin of the mountain-crushing drill and closed the door. As Zhang Tian made a hand seal, the time array disc in the myriad stone cauldron released colorful rays of light that were 100 meters long. There were more and more rays of light, overlapping and merging with each other, gradually forming a droplet-shaped shield that completely covered the mountain-crushing drill. This light is so beautiful. At this time, the Wolf King and many winter soldiers were stunned and mesmerized. This water droplet was translucent and overflowing with light. Like mercury, it gave off a glossy feeling and reflected the surrounding scenery. The colors were incomparably gorgeous and realistic at the same time. It was not a product of this world at all. The moment Zhang Tian activated the earth drilling drill and the propulsion rune array, he felt that the speed of the reactor had increased by more than 10 times. This beautiful water droplet suddenly elongated like a huge needle and the space behind it twisted like a long tail of flame. In the end, with a whoosh, the water droplet and the mountain-crushing drill turned into a dazzling ray of light and shot into the depths of the earth, disappearing on the spot. The mountain-crushing drill was powerful enough. Together with the time array disc, it seemed to have the help of God. They didn't need the help of the advanced troops at all. It only took them less than half an hour to reach the deep place where planet destruction was. When they walked out of the mountain-crushing drill and floated in the gap between the boiling magma and planet destruction, this is planet destruction. What a powerful Dharma artifact. Even the ruins of deities don't have such a marvelous refining method. Only such a Dharma artifact can swallow the vast spirit chi of an ancient cultivation planet. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Although Star Destroyer's weapon spirit had been destroyed and its aura had been reduced to 1/10 of its original, leaving only the skeleton of the formation, its power had been greatly reduced. However, the magnificent shape of the weapon and the precise components still gave Zhenlong and the other old freaks a tremendous pressure. They were so shocked that they dropped their jaws and clicked their tongues in astonishment. At this moment, they finally understood what kind of terrifying existence Zhang Tian was fighting for the spirit chi with. Protect me. This time I'm going to form a divine-grade chaotic golden core. It will be the foundation for me to conquer all the multidimensional worlds. Zhang Tian's body flashed as he ordered True Dragon and the other 3 patriarchs. Then he brought the time array disc and flew towards the giant immortal pregnant placenta like a giant bird. Yes. The 4 nascent soul formation patriarchs flew towards the giant immortal pregnant placenta and stood respectfully. Their eyes shone like the most loyal guards as they scanned their surroundings vigilantly to deal with any changes or accidents that might happen. First, I'll cultivate the wind, thunder and darkness divine bodies and cultivate 3 divine-grade false cores. Then I'll merge the 9 divine-grade false cores into one and cultivate the supreme chaotic golden core. A glint of determination appeared in Zhang Tian's eyes. His mind was clear as he quickly immersed himself in cultivation. Sizzle. The first thing Zhang Tian took out was the Kunpeng blood essence bead. The blood essence bead was the size of a chicken egg and it was red like an agate. It was extremely beautiful. However, as soon as the blood essence bead appeared, it immediately swept across the area like a hurricane and a tsunami. The Kunpeng blood essence bead was formed when Empress Hua killed the first Kunpeng that was born in the chaotic world. The Kunpeng was a true god that was born in heaven and earth. How powerful would its blood essence be? Terrifying. Only 1/10 of this vast and pure essence bead is enough to create a 9th-grade golden core overlord, right? Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the other 3 patriarchs were dumbfounded. Chapter 1299. This is the blood essence of the Kunpeng. It's much purer than the blood of our race. Ancestral Patriarch Takong's eyes were filled with envy and excitement. His hands were shaking violently. Ancestral patriarch Takong belonged to the Kunpeng bloodline of the demons, but the Kunpeng bloodline in his body was very thin. Even so, his speed was still the fastest in the multidimensional worlds, and he was known as walking on air, 10,000 miles in one step. Zhuangzi's journey once said that the Kunpeng, there is a fish in the north called the Kun. The Kun is thousands of miles long. It turns into a bird and is called the Peng. The back of the Peng is thousands of miles long. When it flies, its wings are like the clouds in the sky. It was also said that it could fly for 90,000 miles with the help of a goat's horn, breaking the clouds and carrying the sky. These descriptions were extremely magnificent and unimaginable, but they weren't empty words. Jiang Tian had only seen a real divine beast, the Kun Ping, after he had entered the divine realm in his previous life. This kind of divine beast could control space, control wind and thunder, and cover a distance of 10,000 miles with a single wing. It could even reopen the strict world membrane and space barrier, shatter the void, roam the vast sea of stars, strike across 3,000 worlds and travel through the universe at will. Besides, the owner of the blood essence wasn't an ordinary Kun Ping. It was a kind of terrifying being that was born with the power of God. A real divine-grade golden core is so precious that it requires the blood essence of a complete Kun Ping. They were all shocked. In the ruins of deity and the other dimensions, there were only legends about sacred and deity-grade golden cores. No one had ever made a fake golden core. Many people thought it was too illusory and they didn't dare to pursue it. Even if he could condense a high-grade fake core that was far inferior to the saint grade or celestial grade, he would still be able to surpass his peers and laugh proudly in the world. He could be said to be a heavenly talent and had the foundation and capital to become the ruler of a world and become famous in the dimensional world. After meeting Jiang Tian, they finally knew how powerful a divine-grade golden core was. However, they still didn't have a deep understanding of the cultivation process. That day it was an eye-opener for them. I haven't started swallowing and refining it. This is just the energy of the blood essence. Are you already surprised? Jiang Tian said with a smile. What? When the four of them heard this, they couldn't help but be shocked. Their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Jiang Tian activated the primal chaos creation incantation and pointed at the pearl with his right hand. Rumble. A loud sound rang out. The bead trembled all of a sudden like a supernova explosion. It became dazzling, releasing tens of thousands of rays of light and endless auspicious colors. An even more vast essence chi spread out in all directions like a deep sea. This time even the surrounding magma, which seemed to be sealed, trembled violently and was pushed several miles away. I've never felt such condensed and heavy essence chi. The four old monsters of the true dragon clan all felt a violent suppression at the same time, as if they had fallen into a mountain. Of course, no matter how boundless the essence chi was, it couldn't be instantly released. This was because the flowing time array disk accelerated the flow of time, like a catalyst in a chemical reaction. But at this moment, everyone suddenly felt the pressure on them lighten. A vast amount of essence chi was pouring into Jiang Tian's dantian like a tide. The true essence in Jiang Tian's dantian also increased at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if there was no end to it. Jiang Tian's body emitted a crystal-clear light as if it were made of precious gold. It was extremely magical, as if a god had descended to the mortal world. But the pressure emitted by Jiang Tian also became stronger and stronger. The four of them couldn't hold on any longer and were shocked. In his dantian, the vast Kunping essence chi was quickly converted into Kunping true essence by Jiang Tian. Dozens of minutes later, a fake core the size of a pigeon egg had been formed. There was an illusion of a Kunping with wings in the sky. Although it wasn't condensed enough, it was already quite powerful. So fast. Master, what cultivation art is this? It's so fast when I cultivate it. The four of them were dumbfounded as if they had seen a ghost. Even with the effect of the time array disk, only a few hours had passed. But Jiang Tian had already formed the prototype of a fake core. This speed was as shocking as a legend. You can absorb and refine the portion of spiritual chi that is scattered outside. Don't waste it. Jiang Tian's body was shining brightly like a god. His face was solemn, and his face was solemn as he spoke to the four of them through his divine consciousness. Jiang Tian's refining speed was extraordinary. But the essence chi contained in the Kunping blood essence pearl was too vast. Some of it still leaked out. The real Kunping essence chi can help me reach the heavens in a single step. Ancestral Patriarch Takong's eyes shone brightly and revealed a crazed look of greed. He was so excited that his body trembled. He couldn't believe it. Thank you, Master. We will never forget your great kindness. The other three also seemed to have woken up from a dream. They quickly kowtowed in the air with boundless gratitude in their eyes. The blood essence of the real Kunping ancestor, even if they were able to absorb even a tiny bit of it, it would be a great fortune that would allow them to improve endlessly. It was very likely that they would break through their shackles and step into the true nascent soul stage. Jiang Tian closed his eyes and focused on refining the essence blood. The four of them also sat cross-legged in the air and quickly absorbed the Kunping essence chi that had leaked out in the air. In the depths of the underground, peace was restored. The surging magma illuminated them thoroughly red, making them look like 5 statues. 7 days later. Suddenly, Ancestral Patriarch Takong let out a long roar. His dantian flashed and the golden core in the shape of a fake nascent soul was completely shattered. His dantian evolved into a spiritual chi embryo. His essence chi and spirit merged into one and formed a baby. He had finally formed a nascent soul. At this moment his treasure body was crystal clear and his body was as light as a swallow. It was as if he could fly. The nascent soul in the spirit embryo emitted a radiant light that was a few meters long. After a few flicks of a finger, the radiance gradually dissipated. Nascent soul. Congratulations. You've become a nascent soul cultivator. Once you become a nascent soul cultivator, you can lift the sky with one hand. You can be called a heavenly lord. True Dragon and the other three looked envious. They had never thought that Ancestral Patriarch Takong would be the first to succeed. Nascent soul cultivator? I've finally become a nascent soul cultivator? Ancestral Patriarch Takong was also dumbfounded. His body trembled with excitement and tears ran down his face. He couldn't believe it. There was an important barrier between the nascent soul level and the nascent soul level. It was extremely difficult to break through. Many cultivators couldn't make any progress for hundreds or even thousands of years and would regret it for the rest of their lives. Ancestral Patriarch Takong had also been stuck at this level for hundreds of years. He had once gone to the ruins of deity to look for heavenly treasures, but to no avail. After all, his bloodline was special and it was also difficult to find heavenly treasures suitable for him to absorb and refine. He had already lost all hope. But he had never thought that he would succeed on Earth, which was considered a remote place by the other worlds. The lifespan of a golden core cultivator was usually 2,000 years. He was already 3,000 years old. Even if he had reached the nascent soul level, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. However, once he reached the nascent soul level, not only would his cultivation be strengthened and his combat power would be increased by 100 times, his lifespan would also be extended by a few thousand years. It was like having an extra life. Master, thank you for your blessing. I finally reached the nascent soul level. His voice was choked with sobs as he kowtowed to Jiang Tian. The gratitude in his heart couldn't be described with words. He knew that everything was given to him by Jiang Tian. Not only did Jiang Tian let him share the extremely precious Kunping essence chi, he also gave him a lot of advice during his cultivation, which helped him understand cultivation to an unprecedented level. That was why he was able to break the shackles in the end. At this moment, even if he had to take a blade for Jiang Tian and die, he would gladly do it without hesitation. Jiang Tian's expression was calm as he nodded slightly. But why isn't there any thunder tribulation after reaching the nascent soul level? Suddenly, Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon asked. Everyone was curious. Even Takong himself was puzzled. You're lucky. Jiang Tian smiled and said with his immortal will. The thunder tribulation is just a punishment given by the laws of heaven and earth to those who break the cage. But you're deep underground now. Even the laws of heaven and earth won't be able to detect you. This old servant has really made a huge profit today. Ancestral Patriarch Takong was overjoyed when he heard this. The thunder tribulation had both advantages and disadvantages. The thunder tribulation could remove the impurities in a cultivator's body and make his golden core or nascent soul more solid. Of course, his combat power would be more powerful. However, at least half of the cultivators died in the thunder tribulation. Not only would their previous efforts be wasted, but they would also lose their lives. In fact, Other than the most radical cultivators, most cultivators wanted to be safe and avoid the thunder tribulation. However, there were very few such arts. Among all the civilizations in the universe, only Zhou Xian's art of cloud stealing and the thick earth divine chains could be used. Most cultivators used dharma treasures from their sects and families to protect themselves. Although Takong didn't have the chance to reach the nascent soul level again, he was already satisfied and didn't want to take the risk. After he reached the nascent soul level, 3 days later the blood essence orb of the Kunping let out a cry. It was full of cracks and completely shattered. The blood essence orb has been used up. Did Master succeed with the fake core? The 4 patriarchs looked worried and scanned Zhang Tian's dantian with their immortal will. What's this? The Kunping Dharma form. There was a shiny fake core in Zhang Tian's body, emitting an indestructible energy. The fake core was swallowing a vast amount of true essence and there were many light spots. Each light spot was as bright as a star. These endless light spots formed a giant Kunping Dharma idol that was thousands of feet tall behind Zhang Tian. The Kunping looked like a bird and a fish. It was in between the two. It flapped its wings and its eyes were full of desire, as if it couldn't wait to travel the vast universe. The fake core is successfully formed, but my divine body is only at the initial success level. However, I can already control space and travel 10,000 miles in a second. Zhang Tian let out a long sigh and revealed a satisfied expression. Then he shouted in a low voice, "Rise." The 4 of them were shocked to see that. The Kunping fake core jumped out and merged with the Kunping Dharma form. Screech. The Kunping celestial body suddenly let out a shriek and twisted. It stretched to its limit and turned into an extremely thin and long bright light beam. At that moment, there seemed to be nothing in the world except for the ray of light. It was sharp, beautiful and gorgeous. Chapter 1300. Swish. That ray of light shot out like a bolt of lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Master, this is... The 4 of them looked at each other in dismay, revealing puzzled expressions. In the blink of an eye, the Kunping celestial body once again condensed behind Zhang Tian. However, there was a delicate and beautiful flower in its mouth. Oh my God! It crossed thousands of miles in an instant and came back with a flower. It really has the power to break the dimension. How is that possible? True Dragon Ancestor and the others were shocked to the extreme. Their hearts trembled and their faces were filled with disbelief. The Kunping Dharma form seemed to have gone to the ground and returned with a flower in the blink of an eye. The speed was definitely the result of a secret technique such as distance reduction that only existed in legends. Also, it was necessary to break through the thick and dense crust of magma. More importantly, it came back with a flower. This meant that it had also condensed a barrier enchantment and propped up a small space to protect the flowers within. It was completely intact. The secret technique used in this was something they had never heard of or seen before, and it could be said to be extremely profound. Normally speaking, nascent soul overlords were able to resonate with the laws of the world and replace the will of the world with their own will. With a single thought, he could cause snow to fall from 1,000 miles away, freezing the earth. With a single word, he could congeal chi into rain, causing lightning to flash and thunder to rumble. For example, the 10 consecutive days and the prehistoric flood on Earth seemed to be natural disasters, but they were actually man-made disasters created by nascent soul overlords. That was why they were called heavenly lords, which meant that they could replace part of the will of the world. However, the laws of space were the most stable, vast and difficult laws in the universe, just like the laws of time. Even the top nascent soul overlords couldn't control them. For example, some nascent soul overlords could create forbidden zones and control the space within a few hundred meters. But that wasn't an accurate way to put it. In other words, they didn't really control the laws of space. In essence, they controlled the spirit chi in the world. If the spirit chi didn't move, the life and matter wouldn't move either. Only soul formation stage cultivators could touch the edge of the spatial laws and truly control a small area of space. In order to distinguish it from the Jindan stage's forbidden domain, it was usually called a domain, which meant that the Jindan stage cultivator was the lord of this area. But like Zhang Tian, it was simply unheard of for someone to be able to control the laws of space just by condensing a fake core. Not to mention that they were only the giants of the dimensional world and had limited knowledge, It was inevitable that they would be shocked. Even the legendary sect masters of the Central Galaxy wouldn't believe what they were hearing, as if they were hearing a fantasy story. Kun Peng Extreme Speed Divine Body. This name is very suitable. Ignoring their exclamations, Jiang Tian kept the Kun Ping Dharma form and the fake elixir back into his dantian. He picked up the fresh flower and sniffed it, revealing a satisfied expression. Perhaps this is the power of a divine-grade fake pill. Ancestral Patriarch Takong's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. I've heard that there are different grades of divine-grade golden cores, and the chaotic golden core that Master has condensed is the most powerful among the divine-grade golden cores. Once it's formed, Old Ancestor True Dragon said. That's right. This is only the power of a fake elixir. What if 9 fake elixirs form a chaotic golden core? I'm afraid that Master won't be weaker than a soul formation grand cultivator. He'll be invincible with me around. Even if he can't defeat a soul formation cultivator, he can at least escape unscathed. The other 3 felt suffocated and their hearts trembled. They were so excited that they couldn't speak properly. But they didn't dare to talk too much with their immortal will, fearing that they would disturb Jiang Tian. If such a divine material is shattered and transformed into essence energy and spirit energy, then not only would it be filled with difficulties, it would also be a waste of nature's gifts. Jiang Tian had already heaved a sigh and took out the Dinghai Pearl. His eyes glittered and he was about to build an ice divine body. The Dinghai Pearl was a divine material and it could also control the power of space. It was definitely better than the Cauldron of Creation in that regard. Back then the Ao Emperor had used this pearl to freeze space and swept through all the heroes, intimidating many ancient sages. He looked down on the entire second half of the ancient era and became the successor of the Qing Emperor Zhongli, presiding over the latter half of the interstellar wandering. The Dinghai Pearl could also control space, but it was different from the blood of the Kun Ping. The Kun Ping could break and destroy space. It was faster, so it was the most powerful overlord with a wind elemental divine body. The Dinghai Pearl could freeze space and restrict everything. It was better at controlling space and imprisoning people and things. How can I absorb and refine it into a fake elixir if I don't turn it into spirit chi? The 4 of them looked at each other in confusion, but they didn't dare to say a word, fearing that they would disturb Jiang Tian. Because Jiang Tian's question was beyond their understanding, they couldn't talk to Jiang Tian at all. You're born with extreme changes and you can't be questioned by your appearance. If so, I'll use you as a core embryo and infuse your blood and divine soul into the golden core. After Jiang Tian said that, there's such a powerful Dharma gate in the world. The 4 of them were dumbfounded and confused. Look at how shocked you are. Jiang Tian noticed their changes and couldn't help but laugh involuntarily. The normal cultivation method is to absorb spirit chi and refine it into true essence. Then the true essence will form a fake elixir and the golden core will be formed through the thunder tribulation. I think I'm the object and the material is the main body. But in fact things are dead and people are alive. We're the real main body and everything else is the object. Cultivation is going against nature and stealing the creation of heaven and earth. Why can't we take it and become the master? The truth. The truth of cultivation is the truth of the universe. Listening to you is better than cultivating for 1,000 years. Hearing Jiang Tian's words, it was as if a bolt of lightning struck the hearts of Zhenlong and the other 3. They immediately understood and revealed expressions of sudden realization. Since the divine material was pure and contained endless power, there was no need to break it. Instead he would infuse his blood essence and soul into it and become one with it. You have me and I have you. But the divine material didn't have consciousness. Once it was nourished by Jiang Tian's essence blood and completely controlled by Jiang Tian's divine soul, it would be Jiang Tian's golden core. I've understood. I've finally understood. I've achieved nirvana in a day. Old Rulai Lotus was even more enlightened as if he was suddenly enlightened. Understanding everything in his heart, he fell to the ground and laughed heartily at the sky. There was no more fierceness on his face. Instead he was kind, calm, happy and relieved. He closed his eyes slightly and lowered his eyebrows like a bodhisattva. The rings of Buddha's light behind his head shattered into pieces and turned into ashes like a phoenix bathing in fire. Finally, a nascent soul of Buddha's light was born from the ashes. Liansheng also broke through the barrier and stepped into the nascent soul realm. Seeing this, Jiang Tian also nodded in relief. These 4 old monsters were good. They were all cultivation geniuses and were loyal. In the future, they would become his right-hand men to protect Earth in the ruins of immortality. Withdrawing his thoughts, Jiang Tian quickly immersed himself in his cultivation. Jiang Tian directly put the pearl into his lower abdomen. Bit by bit, he merged the Soul Devourer's divine sense and his own divine soul into the sea-calming pearl. This was a slow process and couldn't be rushed. If he wasn't careful, he would be attacked by the sea-calming pearl's dermic powers. Although it didn't have a conscious soul, freezing space was its instinct. Once it was invaded, it would definitely fight back. A few days later, this sea-calming pearl looked the same as before, but if a top expert sensed it, he would find that the pearl had a little more spirituality, as if it was alive. It was more condensed and would be more powerful once it exploded. This was the result of Jiang Tian circulating the Transcendent 9 Transformations art. He had already refined a strand of his soul into it and nourished it with endless blood essence. It had already become Jiang Tian's false core, and it would provide Jiang Tian with endless sealing power. I wonder what kind of Dharma idol divine body will be born from this sea-calming pearl. Jiang Tian touched his chin with a strange expression. Although Jiang Tian had done this before, the Dharma idol was different every time. It was difficult to guess. Under Jiang Tian's urging, the sea-calming pearl jumped out and turned into a snow giant. It was covered in white hair and covered in ice crystals. It had a red mouth and fangs. It was very terrifying. The giant took a step forward and stretched out its hand. Everything within a 10-mile radius was frozen. Even the rolling magma suddenly cooled and turned into hard stone. What a powerful confinement force. This is a true domain. The power to control space is no less than the Kunping divine body. The 4 old freaks were like clay statues as they floated there with their mouths agape, and they didn't move at all. All of them were flabbergasted. Although it's a little ugly, its dermic powers are not bad. I'll call you the sea-calming ice divine body. Jiang Tian smiled bitterly and retracted his Dharma idol. The dermic powers of the space imprisonment disappeared, and the 4 old monsters regained their freedom. Sai, it's finally your turn. At this time, Jiang Tian had already taken out the darkest stone tablet. His eyes were shining and his face became serious for the first time. The most important step in refining the Chaos Divine Body is to refine the Darkness Divine Body through the darkest stone steel. Victory or defeat depends on this. Chapter 1301. The dark body type was the opposite of the light body type. In short, the light body type had the characteristics of release, explosion, chaos, and entropy, just like the Big Bang. On the other hand, the dark body type had the characteristics of gathering, swallowing, returning to the origin, and reducing entropy. For example, the light body type was like the stars in the universe, releasing light to attack, while the dark body type was like a black hole, constantly swallowing and gathering the energy of others. However, only returning to the origin and compressing energy to form a singularity was the prerequisite for the chaotic energy in the universe. Chaos wasn't the initial state of the universe. It was the result of the Big Bang. The beginning of the universe was a singularity, also known as a negative vacuum. It was the result of creation and endless energy returning to the origin. The explosion of the singularity was called chaos. Tai Chi was a complete unity of yin and yang, which was the chaos. The chaos was like a chicken egg, able to give birth to divine puppets and billions of planets. Jiang Tian's chaotic divine body mimicked the state of returning to the origin and chaos in the universe. It formed a powerful swallowing, explosive and tearing force, formed dharma forms and simulated anomalies. It was invincible among the same level and could kill high-level overlords. After all, it had already surpassed the category of divine puppets and the power of the world. It was comparable to the natural force of the universe. His true essence exploded like the Big Bang and he could turn the sun and moon upside down. Boom. The moment Jiang Tian started to form the dark divine body. Within Jiang Tian's dantian, many false cores throbbed as he circulated the primal chaos creation art to the extreme. Multicolored true yuan transformed into sabers, spears, swords, halberds, flames, and ice as they attacked the darkest stone steel. This dark steel is indestructible. However, the 4 patriarchs were shocked to see that there were only a few cracks. Only a few extremely faint marks appeared on the darkest stone tablet. They were almost invisible and only bits of ash drifted down. However, Zhang Tian wasn't discouraged at all. Instead, a smile appeared on his face. The dark stone was an extremely rare material in the universe. It was like a black hole and was called a deity material. Its swallowing ability was the best in the universe, so it wouldn't be destroyed that easily. It could be said that even if a soul formation cultivator were to attack continuously for 10 years, he might not be able to create a single crack. There were two reasons why Zhang Tian was able to produce some fragments. Firstly, the tool spirit of the darkest stone tablet had already been erased by Emperor Shi. Furthermore, the darkest stone tablet had already acknowledged Zhang Tian as its master to a certain extent. Secondly, the time formation disc had the effect of increasing the speed of Zhang Tian's attacks by tenfold, making them comparable to those of soul formation cultivators. Zhang Tian's endless true essence erupted, reaching out from his dantian like tentacles, grabbing the dark fragments into his dantian. He activated the 9 transformations mysterious technique, crushing and absorbing them like a millstone, refining them into his body's dark true essence. After a total of 20 days, the darkest stone steel in Zhang Tian's dantian was only broken by 1/10. It was so thin that it was almost impossible to see it. At this rate, I'm afraid that even if the energy of the time array disk is depleted, I won't be able to completely devour the darkest stone tablet and refine the darkest divine body. A hint of anxiety appeared on Zhang Tian's face. The 4 nascent soul cultivators frowned and were no longer in the mood to meditate and cultivate. If the time array disk was destroyed, they wouldn't dare to stay here for too long. The rolling lava and the endless pressure might devour all of them, including Zhang Tian. Their only hope was that Zhang Tian would succeed in reaching the golden core level. Then the endless lava and the rigid crust wouldn't be able to stop him. This star destroyer should be doing something. Why? Zhang Tian frowned and stared at the star destroyer. Suddenly he slapped his head and laughed. Am I stupid? Its tool spirit has already been destroyed. How can it activate the devouring power? Whoosh. Zhang Tian touched his forehead with his right hand and a soul-devouring divine sense burst out and poured into the star destroyer, acting as the array spirit. The star destroyer immediately started to operate. Everyone immediately felt it. An extremely powerful devouring power erupted from the star destroyer and everyone couldn't help but float over. Just as the 4 of them were shocked, the devouring power suddenly gathered on the darkest stone tablet and completely enveloped it. Crack, crack. All of a sudden, the darkest stone steel cracked and the black darkest essence chi poured into star destruction. This star destroyer can even devour the darkest stone tablet. The 4 patriarchs were shocked. Looks like I underestimated the power of the star destroyer. I'm afraid it's not just a deity artifact anymore. It's a divine artifact. Zhang Tian's eyes glittered. Right then he was more and more convinced that the star destroyer might have devoured the spirit chi of many planets with life, not just the ancient Earth. However, the black essence chi didn't stay in the star destroyer. Instead, it was continuously poured into the placenta. To be exact, it was pouring into Zhang Tian through the 13 umbilical cords. Great. Zhang Tian laughed and circulated the chaotic creation art to the maximum. Immediately, his dantian shook like a raging river and his body let out beams of light, quickly absorbing and refining the dark essence chi. Then, sizzle sizzle sizzle. Endless dark essence chi poured into Zhang Tian's dantian through the umbilical cords that looked like black tentacles. As for the true essence of darkness in Zhang Tian's dantian, it was like a huge wave rising from the ground, becoming more and more numerous and heavier. Inside his dantian, a dark light was rolling and spinning like a huge vortex, spinning endlessly. It was incomparably deep like a black hole. Zhang Tian's body gradually turned black, like a black crystal. A terrifying devouring power circled around him, making him look like a demon or a god. It was as if he could swallow an entire sea of stars in a single gulp. How terrifying! Not even a soul formation overlord can resist such a swallowing force. The dark divine body can swallow the world. It's not an exaggeration. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the others were completely dumbfounded. Zhang Tian had already used a secret art to control the swallowing force, trying not to affect them. And yet they still felt that they were being pulled into Zhang Tian's body and that their divine souls and nascent souls were about to be swallowed. They were afraid that Zhang Tian could devour them completely and turn them into endless nourishment for Zhang Tian's divine body. Ancestor Takong's robe was pulled straight towards Zhang Tian. It fluttered loudly as if it was about to be torn apart. His movement technique was the fastest in the dimensional world, far surpassing the other 3 old monsters. However, he was sure that under the devouring of the divine body of darkness, even with his speed, he wouldn't be able to take more than 3 steps before being pulled back. Master's power is so terrifying. Ancestral Patriarch Takong's eyes twitched and he looked terrified. With the help of the planet destruction and the pregnant deity placenta, Zhang Tian was a lot faster. A few days later, a dark fake elixir was finally formed in his body. The dark divine body turned out to be a black-scaled Taotai. The goat's horns were curved into 9 bends and 18 bends, and its feet stepped on the stars. Its head was large to the point it was disproportionate to its body and limbs, and it was like a small mountain. Its wide mouth could split open to the roots of its ears, and its numerous enormous teeth were like steel blades and long swords. Long streams of saliva hung from its mouth, and its eyes revealed greed as if it wanted to devour the heavens and the earth, and it was filled with a cruel and terrifying aura. You've only achieved the initial success divine body and you've already turned into the Taotai Dharma form. Not bad. I'll call you the Taotai origin returning divine body. Zhang Tian was very satisfied. The Taotai along with Tao Wu Qiongqi and Hao Shou were the 4 most ferocious beasts in the universe. They had the ability to swallow the world. Rumor had it that they were formed by the laws of heaven and earth when the ancient gods of the universe violated the laws of heaven. They had an extraordinary origin and were very mysterious. Of course, the Taotai was only a dharma form of the dark fake elixir. After all, Zhang Tian's dark divine body was only at the initial success level. The dharma form of the dark fake elixir still had many changes. By then his dharma power would be 10 times or even 100 times stronger. However, even if the dark divine body is only at the initial success level, I've already formed a fake elixir and I can still use part of the returning essence power. Zhang Tian's eyes flashed with determination and a glint of sharpness flashed in them. Right now I have the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, ice and darkness divine bodies. I can finally form the chaotic divine body. In a blink, Zhang Tian circulated the super divine 9 transformation art to the maximum. The 5 elemental fake elixirs in his body cracked one by one and turned into connate 5 elemental essence qi, which was then infused into the dark fake elixir. By then Zhang Tian's energy had already increased by 100 times and it was extremely terrifying. His body was like a vajra that flickered inch by inch and emanated dazzling and resplendent light that formed a myriad of strands of auspicious light and numerous phenomena that circled around him. Towei. You can't survive the thunder tribulation even if you break through underground. Then Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon looked around and was terrified by what he saw. Deep underground, in the magma, balls of lightning with a radius of 50 kilometers shot out. They were oddly shaped and stretched out in all directions, seemingly endless. Some condensed into mountains of lightning, some intertwined into clouds of lightning, some surged into seas of lightning, and there were even lightning dragons that shuttled back and forth between the lightning mountains, seas and clouds. Every thunder dragon had a different color and represented a different attribute. They were hundreds of meters long and even thousands of meters long. They were condensed and didn't disperse. They rumbled and trembled, full of destructive power. Chapter 1302. This isn't the thunder tribulation created by Emperor Nuwa and Emperor Shi. Their marks of the Grand Tao aren't communicating with me at all. They might not even know that I'm breaking through. Zhang Tian's eyes widened and his face changed color. Ah. A second later, Zhang Tian realized what was going on and heaved a sigh. Earth used to be the marks of the Grand Tao left by Emperor Nuwa and Emperor Shi, representing the laws of heaven and earth. If I form the golden core deep underground, I can completely avoid their detection. However, a divine-grade golden core is something that can shake the universe. This lightning doesn't come from earth, but from the depths of the universe. Cultivators were born in heaven and earth. Their cultivation was to seize the fortune of heaven and earth, to fight against heaven and earth. Of course, heaven and earth wouldn't let you surpass it, or it would send you a tribulation. Every heaven and earth had a different grand Tao consciousness that controlled the laws of heaven and earth. However, only a divine-grade golden core could trigger the grand Tao consciousness of the universe. When a superior-grade golden core was formed, everything within a 100-mile radius would shake and there would be 4 thunder tribulations. When a divine-grade golden core was shaken, there would be 9 thunder tribulations. When a divine-grade golden core was shaken, there would be a sea of thunder, clouds and mountains. However, Xianxia's golden core was a divine-grade golden core. The sea of thunder was vast, the clouds covered the sky and the mountains were 100 miles long. This was the result of Xianxia breaking through deep underground, using the crust as a shield and endless lava as a cover. It seemed that the grand Tao consciousness of the universe wasn't sure either. Otherwise, the scale would be even more terrifying. Not even a true god from the divine realm can stop me. It's not like I haven't killed a true god before, let alone a mere divine tribulation. Xianxia looked up. His eyes were as sharp as a peerless heavenly blade, as if they could pierce through the earth and tear the sky apart. Xianxia knew that when the clouds, mountains and sea of thunder were intertwined, the dragon-shaped lightning would strike. However, Xianxia had lived 2 lifetimes and had experienced a long and bumpy road of cultivation. When had he ever been afraid? Since Xianxia wanted to condense his chaos divine-grade golden core, he had to take a gamble. Xianxia was willing to give it a try in order to condense a divine-grade golden core. Break. Following Xianxia's low growl, the Thunder Slaughter false core also shattered, turning into a bolt of lightning that shot into the Thunder Slaughter false core and disappeared. Break again. In the end, even the most tenacious core of the sea calming pearl turned into endless ice shards and was completely swallowed by the dark gold core. Boom. Deep underground, endless thunder rumbled as if it was going to tear the earth's crust apart. Lei Long seemed to have sensed Xianxia's intention of condensing a supreme gold core. His thunder eyes flashed fiercely as he roared crazily. Those thunder dragons were all different. Some of them would only appear when they reached the nascent soul level or the soul formation level. There were Tao-cutting thunder, 9 heavens thunder, demon-killing light thunder, essence magnetic mines. A total of 81 thunder dragons were shuttling between the thunder mountains, roaring in the thunder ocean and roaring in the thunder clouds. Each of the thunder dragons carried an extremely terrifying energy. They could tear the earth apart, flatten mountains and blow up everything within a 100-mile range. Not even the tribulation of a nascent soul overlord is this terrifying. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the others were so frightened that they couldn't even stand still. That destructive energy was too terrifying. Even Ta Kong and Lian Xing, who had already reached the nascent soul level, couldn't withstand it and staggered backward. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon was so frightened that he turned into a dragon and knelt on the ground. But nobody laughed at him. That was the power of heaven. Not many people in the universe could resist it. When they formed the golden core, the lightning bolts were as thick as chopsticks and as thick as a child's arm. Normally, they would have 19 thunder tribulations, which weren't even comparable to a thunder dragon's claw. And yet, Xianxia was facing 81 thunder dragons right then. The 4 of them panicked. Only Xianxia sat in the deity-pregnant placenta with his legs crossed. He looked up at the sky with a calm face. Bring it on. The chaotic golden core is still the most powerful golden core. I don't believe you can destroy it. Xianxia's eyes were as sharp as a heavenly sword. Rumble. Xianxia's mind was firm and his mind was as firm as a rock. Inside his dantian, the darkest golden core was spinning like a vortex, compressing a lot of energy and returning it to its original state. Roar. Finally, the thunder dragons were enraged. They roared to the sky and waved their giant claws. The terrifying thunder tribulations were about to strike. But then, the chaotic fake core is formed. Xianxia shouted in a low voice. Boom. Strands of dark yellow chaotic aura gushed out from Xianxia's trembling and rumbling dantian. It was as if the heavens and the earth had just been split apart, and it formed a vast sea of stars. Then a spinning divine disk appeared in Xianxia's dantian. From the center of the disk there were 9 auras that spun outwards. They were like 9 dragons circling a pearl or looking down at the Milky Way. If one took a closer look they would find that Each aura was made up of dazzling or dim stars, just like stars and planets. The entire divine disk was like the Milky Way or even the Milky Way. It was so bright, so vast, so deep, and so brilliant. Good, good, good. The chaotic fake core has turned into a divine disk. Zhou Xian rejoiced and even went wild with joy. With the help of the time array disk and the spirit chi of planet destruction, his cultivation speed had increased by 10 times. He had successfully formed the chaotic golden core before the thunder tribulations and had the ability to resist them. Why is the shape of the fake core so strange? It looks like a galaxy. The 4 old monsters' eyes shone with a strange light. They couldn't believe it. That's what a divine-grade golden core looks like. Who says a golden core has to be round? Different races and bloodlines will give birth to different golden cores. An unprecedentedly brilliant smile appeared on Zhou Xian's face. He was delighted, and there was even a trace of pride in his eyes. At this moment, a lightning dragon finally descended, flashing with a terrifying murderous intent. "Master, watch out!" The 4 old monsters yelled, but they didn't dare to go forward because they couldn't resist at all. They would only be reduced to ashes in a second. "I can use you to increase my thunder power." Zhou Xian stood up, his eyes sharp as he faced Lei Long Boom. This lightning dragon directly enveloped Zhou Xian, but in the next moment, it disappeared without a trace, entering Zhou Xian's divine disk. However, Zhou Xian's face didn't change. His shining divine body didn't even tremble. He resisted the thunder dragon with his body without any Dharma artifacts or Dharma arts. That's extremely terrifying. The true dragon and the other 3 old monsters were shocked to the point of numbness. They could not believe it. In the ruins of deities and the multidimensional worlds, cultivators would either use secret divine powers or have top Dharma treasures given by their families to break through to the golden core level. How could he be like Zhou Xian, who used his physical body to face the attack head-on? It was simple, crude, and simply inconceivable. Besides, what Zhou Xian was facing wasn't a normal golden core thunder tribulation. It was a terrifying thunder tribulation that only appeared when cultivators tried to break through to the nascent soul level or even the soul formation level. Boom. Arg. However, before they could calm down from their shock, another lightning dragon roared and arrived. It was extremely terrifying. There were a total of 9 lightning dragons of various colors and shapes. Each one was more majestic than the last, and each one was more dazzling than the last. They were a dozen meters thick, and they were like a giant thunder pillar that could penetrate the earth. They were as powerful as an attack from a nascent soul heavenly lord. But still they couldn't hurt Zhou Xian at all. The 9 thunder dragons attacked. Zhou Xian's eyes were calm. His dantian was damaged and even his white robe was dusty. He apparently still had energy left. Meanwhile, the sea of thunder in the sky trembled as if it were stunned by Zhou Xian's power. Is Master the reincarnation of an ancient true god? Or a grand cultivator from the universe? The 4 old monsters were shocked and they looked at Zhou Xian as if he were a god. 9 thunder dragons could even turn a peak stage nascent soul grand heavenly lord into ashes, but they couldn't hurt Zhou Xian at all. Come on. Zhou Xian's thick black hair fluttered in the wind and his divine body let out thousands of rays of light. He looked at the vast sea of thunder in the sky and his eyes were as sharp as knives. His divine disk had been refined by the thunder tribulation and was about to become a golden core cultivator. Arg! The remaining thunder dragons roared. Each of them was 1,000 meters long and they flashed across the sky with terrifying power. Dozens of thunder dragons intertwined with each other and turned into a 1,000-foot thunder mountain in the end. Boom! This time Zhou Xian was finally injured. His clothes were torn and many parts of his body exploded. Blood splashed in the air and his jade-like bones were exposed. Who can stand this? Watch out! The 4 old monsters' hearts twitched, but they soon saw something shocking. Zhou Xian's muscles and blood that were scattered in the air like sparkling stars drifted away, streaking across the deep thunder mountains and flying back to his bones, quickly reorganizing and repairing them. Meanwhile, the parts that had been repaired shone even more brilliantly, and the divine radiance was even more resplendent. They emitted an eternal aura of indestructibility, as if nothing in the world could destroy them. Is this the power of the chaotic divine body? What a terrifying recovery ability! Shenlong and the others were shocked and their eyes almost popped out. Right then Jiang Tian's body was releasing an indestructible energy, which was similar to a golden core cultivator, or even more terrifying. Shenlong and the others were startled. It was as if every inch of Jiang Tian's body was made up of indestructible gold cores. That was insane. Chapter 1303. But they didn't know. Jiang Tian hadn't perfected most of his 9 divine bodies, and some of them were only at the initial success level, such as the darkness divine body. So his chaotic divine body was only half a step away from the initial success level, but it might reach the initial success level after being refined by the thunder dragons. They thought that after Jiang Tian humiliated the lightning dragons like that, the lightning dragons would be enraged. They would swarm over and tear Jiang Tian into pieces and turn him into ashes. How is that possible? They're scared. But they were shocked to see that. Arg. Those lightning dragons actually showed signs of fear. They retreated step by step like little white rabbits facing a ferocious tiger. What shocked them even more was that. Oh no. They're running. Jiang Tian stepped out of the pregnant deity placenta and turned into a beam of golden light, flashing towards the thunder dragons without hesitation. Boom. Jiang Tian threw a punch. Immediately, magma flowed out, setting off enormous waves that overflowed into the heavens. The ground trembled, turning into primal chaos. Just one punch. It directly blew up a lightning dragon that was trying to escape in midair. The magma and earth crust around it were blown hundreds of miles deep. The power of a single punch is so terrifying. Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon and the others finally realized how powerful Jiang Tian was after his breakthrough. Every true dragon was as powerful as a nascent soul cultivator, but they couldn't withstand Jiang Tian's attacks at all. Arg. The other lightning dragons seemed to have intelligence. They let out terrified cries and scattered in all directions. They drilled into the magma crust in all directions, wishing they could grow a few more legs. Don't run. Jiang Tian struck out with both his fists and palms, using his physical body to fight against the lightning dragon. He even charged forward without any technique. This was a shocking chaotic battle. Jiang Tian was like a ferocious tiger that had walked into a flock of sheep, completely unrestrained. With a punch and a kick, the lightning mountain collapsed, the lightning sea churned, and the lightning dragon collapsed amidst mournful cries. Nothing could stop him. Jiang Tian was unrestrained and carefree. His aura rose steadily, pushing the lava 100 miles away. He didn't even try to dodge the attacks. His bones were broken and his muscles were quickly repaired. He had the most powerful chaotic divine body in the universe, and it was indestructible. Even though it was only at the initial success level, he could quickly recover as long as his divine soul wasn't destroyed. Only soul formation and void return overlords could hurt him to a certain extent. Normal nascent soul cultivators couldn't hurt him. But even if his body was destroyed, Jiang Tian could still use a secret art to quickly recover his body. That's simple and violent. Simple and violent. He's asking for it. But the thunder tribulation doesn't dare to strike him. Master's power is terrifying. The old monsters were all dumbfounded. At this moment, the true dragon had already transformed into human form. It no longer had any fear and it was all smiles. However, after Jiang Tian destroyed a dozen thunder dragons, the rest of them ran away and went deep into the lava. Then the thunder mountains, thunder clouds and thunder seas also turned into countless tiny thunderbolts and disappeared. Damn it. They left just like that. Jiang Tian scratched his head. I've only gone through half of the thunder tribulation. I haven't had enough yet. Can't we finish what we started? Haven't had enough. The 4 old monsters fell to the ground with a plop, collapsing on the ground. Although my chaotic divine body is only at the initial success level, I've formed a divine-grade chaotic golden core after all. However, Jiang Tian was still very satisfied, and he even secretly let out a long sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. There were 9 galaxies on the golden core in the shape of a divine disk. They had different shapes because of the different brightness of the stars. The first galaxy was the shadow of the whirling divine tree. The other was the divine general of Gongjin. There were also the Xianxia azure dragon and the thick earth dragon. Some were bright and solid, while others were slightly illusory and dim. This was the result of Zhou Xian's divine bodies not advancing at the same time. The higher the level of the divine body, the brighter and brighter the galaxy. However, each galaxy represented a world that had just been created. Right then, Zhou Xian felt that the energy in his dantian was surging endlessly. It was more than 100 times more powerful than before. Zhou Xian was sure that if the nascent soul fiend Gu who was in front of him, he wouldn't need to play tricks and sneak attacks. He could smash him into pieces with one slap. The chaotic divine body is said to be all-inclusive and omnipotent. I've finally succeeded today. It's indeed so. Zhou Xian checked and was suddenly stunned. In the end, his eyes glittered and he smiled happily. Turned out, other than the 9 main galaxies on the divine disk, there were many smaller galaxies that hadn't formed yet. They were waiting for Zhou Xian to leave more shadows with his divine powers and divine powers. This meant that apart from the power of the 9 divine bodies, Zhou Xian could also create new divine bodies and deity bodies, which would allow him to have billions of clones, endless divine powers and be indestructible forever. One thing was certain. He was extremely lucky in his previous life and had the support of the immortal emperor and a large sect. Even with the support of endless resources, he had only formed a sacred grade golden core, which wasn't even a deity grade one. Even Zhou Xian wouldn't have dared to dream of having a divine grade golden core in his previous life. It was far more powerful than his foundation in his previous life. Even though Earth was known as a barren, dead planet, Zhou Xian was extremely lucky. He used it as a foundation and dominated many worlds. He had many unique conditions which were much better than some cultivation planets. He had a lot of resources including deity materials and divine materials. He also had the spirit chi left by planet extermination and the deity pregnant placenta. Most importantly, he had the time acceleration array disk, which was why he was able to continue cultivating under such harsh conditions. All these factors combined to create a good environment, which not even the peerless sects and immortal sacred grounds at the center of the universe had. At the moment, Zhou Xian felt like a nouveau riche in the cultivation universe. He had a big gold chain, a small gold watch and 3 small barbecues a day. Even the so-called divine princes and divine fetuses couldn't compare to him. Unfortunately, I can't take planet extermination with me. After cultivating for a few more days in the deity pregnant placenta, Zhou Xian completely absorbed the spirit chi left by planet extermination and formed the divine golden core. True Dragon and Mingi also reached the nascent soul level. Zhou Xian finally decided to end his seclusion. Master, the time array disk can still be used. Why don't you cultivate for a while longer? Ancestral Patriarch True Dragon suggested respectfully. I'm not cultivating anymore. Zhou Xian stood up and shook off the 13 umbilical cords. He waved his hand and said, "There's not much spirit chi left. It's too slow. Besides, it's time to clean up the multidimensional worlds." He looked up at the sky with viciousness in his eyes. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the thick crust of the earth and into the sky. He saw many shining multidimensional worlds. Zhou Xian returned safely. He finally became a golden core cultivator and his power surged. Qing'er, the people of the Jiang family and many disciples were relieved. They were overjoyed and the whole sect was overjoyed. That night, after coaxing his daughter to sleep, Zhou Xian and Zhao Xueqing walked around the garden in the dojo. They were bathed in the moonlight and the atmosphere was very warm. It was late at night and the moon was hanging in the sky. Spirit chi gently enveloped the entire dojo like a thin layer of milk. It was very peaceful there. Streams of clear spiritual spring water gurgled over the clean stones, making pleasant tinkling sounds. A gentle breeze blew, and the orchids swayed along the path, emitting a tempting fragrance. In the pool, the purple gold true dragon leaned against a huge rock and slept, snoring softly. Beside it, many white cranes slept with their necks crossed. This place was peaceful and tranquil, making people feel that the years were peaceful and tranquil. It's good that you can come back safely. Zhao Xueqing was like a little girl holding Zhou Xian's arm. She had bright eyes and white teeth and her smile was very warm. "I've made you worry." Zhou Xian gently stroked her hair and said in a gentle voice. Her face was also a little pale. Without Zhou Xian she had to make all the decisions. She had to work hard for the sect and the Myth Alliance. She also had to take care of her child. It's not hard at all. This is the path you've chosen. I'm your woman, so I naturally have to support you. Zhou Xian smiled. Her eyes were bright and gentle, but they were also very determined. She had always been so righteous and broad. She tried her best to keep up with Jiang Tian's footsteps. From the day she set foot on the path of cultivation, she didn't want to be a burden to Jiang Tian. Instead, she guarded the rear for Jiang Tian and acted as Jiang Tian's right-hand man. Jiang Tian smiled gently and walked with her through the cobblestone path and through the pavilions. It was very warm under the moonlight. It's so beautiful here. I hope we can be together forever. I really hope we can walk quietly like this forever. Zhou Xian glanced at the surrounding scenery and finally looked up at the bright moon in the sky. Of course we will always be like this. Are you still worried that I'll have multiple wives? Jiang Tian smiled. I know your feelings for me will never change. I'm talking about the overall situation of the ruins of immortality and earth. Zhou Xian shook her head gently, but there was a deep sadness between her brows that couldn't be dispelled. After giving birth to my daughter, I seem to have a lot of ties, worries. Before, I was really not afraid of death or any threats. In order to defeat my opponent, I could bet everyone's lives. Her eyes were slightly red, but there was deep affection and love in them. She said in a trembling voice, but now I'm always thinking about what will happen to Earth if the ruins of immortality invade one day. What will happen to our baby? Will she be hungry? Will she be frightened by the artillery fire? Will she be homeless? Jiang Tian gently held her in his arms, kissed her forehead and firmly said, Don't worry. As long as I'm here, our daughter will be fine. You'll be fine too. The entire Earth will be fine. After all, I'm now a golden core cultivator. Even nascent soul cultivators are no match for me. After this chat, how can I let others sleep beside me? Most of the dimensional worlds have become the subordinates of the ruins of immortality. How can I let them go? I need to wipe them out and leave no one alive. Jiang Tian immediately put the sweeping of the dimensional worlds on the agenda. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.